Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 25th day of June 2025. And I don't know if you guys are out there in West Michigan, but we had just amazing storms roll through today. I hope everybody's okay out there. Prayers for safety and such. I woke up to hail and lots of it, and I guess there's a ton of trees down around the area. Whitehall got pummeled pretty decently and such, and a good deal of West Michigan is out of power this morning. So we're still up, so that's kind of good. God is good, and so we'll keep looking around to see and make sure everybody's okay. But I think that they're past West Michigan. But everybody else to the east of us, keep a sharp eye open, because they were pretty intense storms rolling through here. So with that said, today we've got lawful defense and the Constitution with John Tater on Tatar Tuesday. And then after John at 10 o'clock is Jonathan Cagle, an independent researcher into corruption in government. I've really figured out a title for this guy because he is just all over the place. One of the best researchers I've run into, and he has the incredible ability to make connections between a variety of information out there. He's really amazing to listen to. So make sure you invite people in. And with that said, I'm going to bring in John. Hey, John, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Looks like you got a buddy there, right?
I do. That's my son. Want to let everybody know he's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Space Force.
That's like really exciting, because I would like to learn more about Space Force. I really would. I think that's really interesting to me.
Well, if he cares to stay around after we do our little ditty to say a few words, he can.
That would be awesome. I would love that. So it looks like you guys are queued up to do a song for us this morning.
We are ready.
All right, let's do this.
Ready? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, go. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but we're doing the best that we can. I used to have a girlfriend, but I guess she just couldn't compete with all these love-starved women who keep clamoring at my feet. Well, I guess you could find me another, but I get all in all of me. Who cares? I never get lonesome, 'cause I treasure my own company. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but we're doing the best that we can. I guess you could say I'm a loner, a cowboy all round up in pride. I could have lots of friends if I wanted, but then I wouldn't stand out from the crowd. Some folks, they call me egotistical. Hell, I don't even know what that means. way that I fill out my skin-tight blue jeans. Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but we're doing the best that we can.
Woo! Good job. That's fun. Well, welcome on the show, John and John.
Thanks for having me.
Do you have I didn't know if you guys wanted to where you want to go this morning, guys?
Well, we're planning on going anywhere actually, but John would like to say a few words about Space Force. I'm all in favor of that, and I know.
Yeah, I want to hear about Space Force. This is really cool. What an honor to have you on here today. This is really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I spent about 17 years in the Air Force, and I was working some space jobs. And so when the opportunity came to join the Space Force, I was doing that work for the Air Force. And a lot of us that were working in Air Force on space missions, we went and joined the Space Force. And so it looks and feels a lot like the Air Force, and we're doing a lot of the same missions that we did at that time. But there's a renewed focus and on delivering capability to the warfighter, from space. Increasingly, we rely on that. In fact, every day everybody uses GPS, and they want weather information, up to date. A lot of those missions are serviced and in many cases invented by the military. So, we get to use all those great missions as a country, and in some cases the world relies on those. So it's great to be able to deliver that capability for folks. And obviously space is an exciting place to work. I'm an engineer, so if you want to do great engineering and great science and technology work, it's hard to beat working in the space industry these days. So we get to be part of that great infrastructure that America has, which is really unmatched in the world. So best engineers, best capability on the planet.
Well, that's very exciting. Do you have special projects that you're working on right now that I'm sure there's a lot you can't talk about just because of the level of protection that needs to happen to that infrastructure? It's just like I'm one of the only female pipeline company owners in the United States, and you can't just walk onto a right of way where the pipes are broken, because if the bad guys get in there and see things, bad things happen. So I'm sure there's stuff you can talk about and stuff you can't talk about. What else can you tell everybody about kind of what Space Force is working on? Like, I'm assuming you're into satellites, a lot of satellites and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, most of our capabilities are delivered from space. So, we have a lot of the big missions that were traditionally Space Force missions, communications, especially strategic communications for our strategic weapons inventory and continuity of government, those kind of capabilities. We have obviously position, navigation, and timing that's given to us by GPS. We have strategic missile warning. We have again the weather mission. And there's also a renewed interest in defensive space. Our adversaries have, I think it's been out in the news quite a bit that our adversaries are very busy, and they understand our reliance on space capabilities to execute our missions from a joint force perspective. And so those, we want to defend those assets, so we have those in the time of war and time of need. So all those missions kind of fall under the Space Force's umbrella, and we build those systems, we train operators how to use them, and then we operate them 24 hours a day. I like to say it's like the water. The warfighter walks up, hits a button and gets their data. And there's no question about whether that's going to be there for them or not. We try to make it sure it's as reliable as possible. So, I just retired. I'm a little bit transition period in my own career. So, I don't think I have a specific project I'm working on at this minute, but I've certainly worked on many cool projects in all those mission areas over my career, and it's been a great service to be able to serve those missions and the country doing that work.
Do you have any current events that you can talk about that Space Force is working on right now?
Current events. Well, there's I think you guys probably have seen some notes in the news about the Russians having some fairly putting up some fairly aggressive capabilities, and those capabilities obviously threaten our infrastructure, and so I think there's maybe a renewed emphasis in wanting to look at more closely what our adversaries are delivering on orbit and making sure we have a way to survive those things. So I really think, if you read the news daily on space, that's going to be a big one. And I think another pretty exciting thing about kind of the current state of the Space Force is this move to what we call proliferated systems, where we used to buy fairly large and exquisite, single units that we'd often put them in like geosynchronous orbit, which is like 35,000 kilometers away from Earth, but basically stays over a single spot in the Earth. Those are very expensive to put there, and they have to survive for a long time, like 10 years in a very hard space environment. So there's a big shift to bring a lot of that down to low Earth orbit, much closer to the Earth, easier to launch. And the thing that is probably most obvious to people is the SpaceX Starlink system, which is basically what they're doing. They're putting thousands of, tens of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites that can do communications, in that case for internet. And, we're trying to borrow that philosophy and use that for a lot of the other core missions, like communications and strategic missile warning. So kind of neat. We're not used to, as a nation, building tens of thousands of satellites at a time and launching that as a single constellation. Usually we're building kind of a small number of very exquisite, very often costly systems. In this case, we're trying to do that much more cheaply but buy more of them. And that way they're supposed to be more resilient, right? If we have a problem with the big one system that everybody's relying on, that's a big problem. But if you have many systems and they're easy to reconstitute, that we think that gives us a lot of additional capability as a country, and helps us, survive in the case there is some sort of issue that we need to survive through. So that's a pretty exciting time, and I think the space industry in America is just booming, trying to meet that demand. So there's a lot of new companies on the street that are standing up, a lot of startups that are we call that the new space, borrowing from sort of what SpaceX has pioneered a little bit, and just a very exciting time to be working in space. Every year we're hitting new launch quantity records, so more launches than ever. It used to be pretty unique to have a couple launches per month, and now we're doing a couple hundred launches a year. So it's a very exciting time to be working there. And like I say, if you're in the industry and you're an engineer, and it couldn't be better.
Well, that's cool. What do you find is one of the biggest challenges of working in space?
Oh boy, space offers more challenges than you can imagine, right? It's I think the toughest part is the environment, right? I mean, you're going to hard vacuum. There's our magnetic field and our atmosphere is protecting us, and our electronic devices, and our own bodies from harmful radiation that's on orbit. Well, our spacecraft don't get that protection. They go up there, they have to live in that environment. Electronics are very difficult to survive there. You can imagine, you want your processor to do what you told it to, And you've got all these harmful particles and rays coming in and bombarding that, and flipping bits and changing changing the signals in there and the memory. And we do a lot of really world-class engineering to make parts that can survive that environment. So, industrial base that can build all those components, that's a big challenge, especially as we talked about, kind of scaling up the ability to build those systems. That is a real challenge for the nation. And I think something you guys are probably interested, being able to onshore that capability to build those electronics and build those capabilities here with Americans and American capabilities, and certainly capabilities of our allies is very important, because our adversaries are obviously built up a lot of capability to build those electronics and key components and materials. So we need to reconstitute a lot of that here, and so that we can have those at any time of need. So I think that's the big challenge, is being able to grow. And certainly you guys probably heard in the news about Elon and Starship and wanting to go to Mars. Those ambitions, I think, are going to require a lot of technology and a lot of creation of industrial base that we don't really have yet. So I think that's a bit, maybe that's from my own lens, because I'm an engineer and working in procurement, things like that. I think that's a big challenge. But hey, we always meet those challenges. And
hey, we're American. We're the toughest mutts on the planet, and we usually get things figured out. It might take us a little bit, but we'll get it figured out. We're resilient. Well, I've got like 1 million questions for you right now, like 1 million questions that I could ask. So I'd like you to come back on again. You're welcome. You're always welcome here. And John, you got a great son. This is cool.
Well, hey, thanks for the chance to, thanks for the invite from my dad here to play a song.
You can stay here. You can stay in part of the broadcast. That's pretty fun. So I think this is great.
So, if you want to, got any more space questions, I'm on.
Yeah, I've got lots of space questions. I mean, we can go into how big of a threat is EMPs, and I mean, I would be like a 5-year-old asking you so many questions. You're like, shut up, Donna.
It's a great subject.
I think so. So, what are we talking about today, Mr. Tater?
Well, last week we spoke about the Republic, and I thought that it was important. But what's going on right now? People are going into the voting booth to vote for new people coming on board or old people coming on board. And I still hear democracy every time I listen. I mean, RFK, not to pick on him, but he's one that I don't think he knows the word republic. And we don't have a democracy in America. And so I sent you a case called Pacific States, which is a federal Supreme Court case.
Well, the problem is we don't have an education system in the state of Michigan either. It's all indoctrination crap. So
that's
I mean,
true.
I think if we all had an education, we could actually speak the same language when it comes to terminology and know what we're talking about instead of just changing definitions at will,
That's right. And that's part of the problem. But the people need to know that, because if the people don't know, then the people keep voting for the same garbage that's in office, and they wonder why we have to change. You know what they say about insanity, right? Voting for the same people and expecting a change.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem that we have. So I thought we'd take a look at some of Pacific State. One part in particular is page 4. Can you get to page 4?
I can. It might take me a minute, but I can make that work.
Okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit. We're not going to do the whole case, only because it's a long case and it requires a lot more effort than we have time for today. But we'll pick on it on another day.
Paraphrase it.
All right. All right. Paraphrasing, basically, it says the citizens. Wait a minute. Page 4.
That's 4.
Okay.
Looks like you got highlighted above there, though.
Yeah, it is highlighted. It's the one that says the power of the majority of the people to impose upon the state a democratic form of government or to adopt institutions violating the Republican form is one of the powers which was not intended to be exercised by anyone, but to be wholly annihilated.
Okay.
And that's at the top of the page, top of page 4.
All right. Let's see. That's the top of page 4 right there.
Keep going. Keep going. Go down a little more. Maybe for some reason yours, I sent you 2 different versions of this thing.
Yeah, I think I've got a different version of it.
Go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning.
Of the case.
Yeah. I'll see it as we pass from it. It says the power. All right, now go back slowly. What happened? Okay, there we are. 1, 2, keep going. It's like the case. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Slow down right there somewhere. Penalties. No, that's not it yet. Keep going. One more. I think it's the next page. It's not there. Wait a minute. Hold on. How come we have? I must have sent you 2 different ones. Do you have another one that I sent you? That's not it. Don't.
Let's see if I can. That's just sent this morning, I believe. Hang on.
So
let me look.
It should be the one that I sent a couple days ago.
As read. Hang on. Let me see if I can pull it up here, guys. That was the one from this morning.
Yeah, evidently I have sent you the wrong one. I thought I sent you the right one.
There's one on the Wednesday Zoom meeting that you sent on the 24th.
That's
that one? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's see if we can get this
red lined and yellow.
Oh, you've got yes marked. Let's see if I can get this guy. Let's see if I can get this one saved. All right. All right, boys and girls, this is what happens when we're on we're on live. It's real news for real people by real people at the kitchen table, sort of. So, as marked. All right, let's see if this guy shows up. Ta-da!
And we're going to be going over this case starting Wednesday, point by point, because it's got a lot of very, very important points in there.
All right, hang on a minute, boys and girls. Let's see if we can get this thing moved over here. I'll move my light a minute. All right, come on. Hang on here. Oh, it's not cooperating with me. Just a minute.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not good at all. Oh, let's see. Yeah, let's see if I can move it this way. This is weird. I might have to get, oh, there we go. Got it. You got stuck there for just a minute. And well, at least you guys know it's real. Ta-da! We have
All
a
right.
Yes.
Now roll down to page 4.
Okay.
And it's marked by hand.
Oh man, you got all kinds of stuff marked out on this one.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of really, really good stuff, but I want to make just a few points because of time. Right
there we go.
There.
Now we got the right one.
Once again, the power of the majority of the people to impose upon a state a democratic form of government This is a majority. What's going on in Michigan? What went on in the last election when they voted for those 3 amendments?
Theft and improper process.
That's right. The people voted for it, which made it a democracy or a democratic form of government, or to adopt institutions violating the republic form, which it did, is one of the powers of which was not intended to be exercised by anyone, Whitmer, but to be wholly annihilated. So we need to look at this. This is the Supreme Court speaking. Very, very important. The next one down, the citizens of the United States receive from the federal government the protection of the rights which are conferred upon them by the nation, by their national citizenship. And what about those people that don't want to be citizens of the United States? Remember that nonsense that we hear? Their national citizenship, okay? The majority of the people of the state cannot, even by amendment of the state's organic laws, encroach upon these privileges of the people.
So how far back do we have to do nullification, John?
Quite a bit back. This case is 1912. This was a while ago. But nonetheless, it is very important that we understand the law is on our side. The law is for us, the people. The law is not for the government. Well, actually, let me say that. Let me rephrase that. The law is against the government or for the government to control the government. But the law is on our side to protect us. So that's how we need to look at this. So let's go to the next page.
Well, they've really twisted this thing upside down because people are, they're using the law, the assumed law against we the people. It's like they've weaponized every other thing on the planet against us.
Yep, stop there. And going to the where it's underlined in red, laws must emanate from the law-making power, not from guess who? Not from the resident who sits in the office and writes up his presidential edicts or his presidential dictates. It can't come from him. It comes from the lawmakers. And in constitutional republic, that power can only be representative legislature created in accordance with the organic law.
Okay, I'm going to ask some stupid questions just because I want to provoke an answer here. But keep going because I'm going to ask some questions and because I want your response on it. Okay. Like Jonathan Brader well, here's a question. If we're under emergency powers, can they create whatever laws they want?
Were we under emergency powers when the Constitution was created?
I don't believe so.
Yes, we were.
We were
just through a revolutionary war. We were just taking over the world at that point, just taking over the United States. We were in crisis. Were we in crisis in World War II and World War I? Yes, we were.
I'd say we were in crisis, yeah.
Yeah. So our whole, and if there's another Supreme Court case that I have to find it. I don't have it off.
Does it have to be declared though? I mean, does it have to be declared like, a national emergency or something? Or is it just one of those things that's assumed?
No, nothing's assumed in this government. Nothing is assumed. We are not on a state of an emergency. And the people that think that we are and that we have been put in a state of emergency since 1933 and we never got out of that, that's bunk.
Yeah, because you see that all over the place.
The Constitution, according to Downs versus Bidwell and several other court cases, Supreme Court cases, say Constitution is never suspended. Never suspended. and it's in writing, and we could pull that up sometime in the near future.
I can find it. I know where that one is because it's like it's in your file. I've got the two-year file here.
We've got to find it in Downs. It's there, but we have to. It's toward the end. It's also underlined and marked up very well. But no, Constitution is never suspended. And that's when they're going to try to pull this nonsense about the elections. We're going to suspend the elections. Can't do it. Sorry. According to the law, you can't do it. Now we do have criminals in office that are going to try to do it, that are going to do everything in their power to try to do it, but they have no authority to do it. The laws and the authority of our government comes from the Constitution, and they have no ability to change that or to adjust it or to say, well, we're in a crisis and we're going to set the Constitution aside. No, can't do it. Sorry. You swore an oath, and your oath says to uphold the Constitution. And if you
I've got another question about that I want to come back to at some point in time on zoning.
Okay.
So just take a mental note on that, and then let's go back and zoning, how zoning works as per the Constitution, or what's constitutionally allowable. But anyhow, keep going.
If you want to talk about that, we can. I mean, I don't have any specific format as to follow. I've just picked out certain parts on this particular court case to bring forth information to people, to let them know that, you know what, the Supreme Court's on the side of the Constitution, the Supreme Court's on the side of the Republic. These renegades that are in office presently that violate one law or another law, or change the amendments, or try to bring forth the amendments like our governor did, they're outside the law. They're out. That's just point blank. They're outside the law. The problem is that the judicial system is outside the law. The legislative system in Michigan is outside the law. These people are criminals. And
what's their justification? Because I'm sure they got a justification. What's the most prevalent justification for why they just kind of like make up policies on the fly, like Jonathan Brader?
Because they think that you don't know any better and you're not going to do anything about it. You never fight back. You never say no. And that's the problem with a lot of our people in our country. We just kind of go along to get along rather than say, no, you know what? You guys are stepping outside the law. You can't do that. We once had I wouldn't say forever. I mean, America never had a perfect system where the law was always followed. But there were years and years, back in the 50s and the 40s, and the law was followed a lot closer and a lot better, and people were a lot more attuned as to what was going on. They just got out of World War II, and they weren't going to go through that nonsense anymore. Well, we kind of let things slide over time. We started protesting during the Vietnam War, but they weren't protesting with the law. They were protesting with other things. And they weren't fighting the way the battle should have been fought. I'm talking about the people. I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about how the people were reacting to the Vietnam War, to reacting to Johnson and his Great Society, saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't take silver out of the coin system. Can't do it. There were people out there sounding the alarm, but not enough people were listening. Not enough people were paying attention. A lot of people were just going along to get along, living the great world that we lived in, or the great society or whatever, rather than saying you can't do what you're doing. And that's part of the problem. We, the people, need to wake up and say, you know what? We're not, especially when somebody's getting up on and talking about this great democracy we have, those people in the audience should say, boo, we do not have a democracy. We have a republic. You don't know what you're talking about. It's time you step down and either re-educate yourself or get out of politics altogether, because you don't know what you're talking about. You
Well,
don't know what
politics-
America's all about.
Politics right now is just evolved into an industry where people self-enrich and they work. It's more like a cult, really, because people want to belong instead of following the law. They want to fit in with this social construct that they believe that they're going to belong. And I mean, that's mostly what I see. It's definitely, it's definitely more of a cult thing, because if you step away and do the right thing, when you see the rest of the cult doing the wrong thing, you're going to be ostracized and removed. You're going to be attacked, because it's not about following the law. It's not about having free dialogue, civil discourse for disagreement and finding out what it is that is the best answer. It really is about just like you said, to go along to get along and be part of the cult. And hopefully you'll get promoted within the cult, and then you'll get favors within the cult. And I'm concerned that it works a lot like the Masons, that once you get past level 3, that's where they vet you from 1 to 3. And if you don't pass the test before 3, you will never, ever move forward. I had a real interesting conversation. I was at an event and John Engler was there. And I thought this was pretty telling. The conversation was really telling. So he said, so we were talking, and he said, you ran for governor and you were never in politics before? I'm like, nope. He goes, well, you can't get in that way. He goes, you should be working for somebody. That's the only way you're going to get in. He goes, I'll send your number to Mike Rogers, and you can go work with Mike Rogers. And I'm sitting there going, snowball's chance in hell that's going to happen. But it's like, it's just like, I'm not interested in fitting in just to go along and get along. I'm like, well, that's great for the way that most people, I'm sure, operate, but I have no interest whatsoever in being part of the establishment and or the way things are always done, because the way things are being done right now sucks. It's like there's not one damn thing that's being done right in anything. So why would I want to fit in with this? This is ridiculous, But I talked to everybody, and I formed my own opinions and such. But it's like I never wanted. It should not be structured that way, where it's a lifelong career and you have to be able to move up the ranks within, say, the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, for them to say, okay, we've got her controlled enough, or him controlled enough, or this person or that person, that they will go along to get along and follow the marching orders. Wrong person for that. Absolutely wrong person for that. This is more like a one-woman wrecking ball to this nonsense that's out there, because it's all bullshit. It's like, are you willing to go along with them to break the law? That's what, and do what we tell you to do, rather than finding out for yourself and asking questions and refusing to go along with the cult, instead standing with Americans and we the people. It was just kind of interesting, pretty telling.
He said, well, John Engler is probably one of the biggest crooks in Michigan. Not the biggest, but one of the biggest.
I really, I hate to say it, but I haven't. There's so much to dig into. I've never really looked into his past, but his statements directly to me were kind of like, okay. You just kind of smile and wave, boys, and smile and wave, just let people talk.
Did he do anything good for Michigan? He's the one that brought in let's raise the sales tax to 6%, and we'll cut the property tax. That was his baby. And so he cut the property tax until inflation kicked in. Now property tax is where it was, or higher than it was.
Oh yeah, that brings up an
inflation.
That brings up another interesting subject. Axe my tax. We're going to go there. You knew I was going to go there. So I've been writing on this, because this is another example of Michiganders going to Stupidville. And I mean, Stupidville is on a freight train to hit this state. And I keep talking about it. I'm like, I'm not going to let this go. I'm not going to let this go, because I'm going to tell you what, Carla Wagner, who is pushing Axe My Tax, did not have, she showed up last year, and you might have been at that meeting, I don't remember, to the U.S. Taxpayer Party, and she talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, tried to take over the meeting. Finally, I was sitting there, you know, starting, I was like, okay, you're going to throw this out here. I'm going to start doing research. Well, I've never been involved in politics and blah, blah, blah. Within 5 minutes, I had 3 pages of donations, and some of them were good size that she's personally made to, I don't know, let's say Brighter Michigan PAC, which is, I think that's something to be a little bit concerned about, as well as there was just a casual political person does not make donations like that, people. And somebody in the chat threw something out this week about ask her who's paying her for signatures for that she's collecting for Axe My Tax. And I'm like, I threw it out there. I'm like, I'm kind of wondering right now if she's being paid for signatures and what the connections are. Is it Freedom Works? Is it another entity in Ottawa County? Because there's some similar addresses that are behind her and other people who are in Ottawa County. And when you look at that nonsense, the Good Neighbor program that the MIGOP had going on in Michigan, which came out of Ottawa County, I'm going to tell you that right now. You had people there that were supposed to be independent in county. And why did Joe Moss have why did he have an email address for the MIGOP when he was Ottawa County? And there's a whole lot of stuff. I published things, but I gotta say there's got to be some connections there. And I'd like everybody out there, I'm going to ask you for input on this. Do you know companies that pay for signatures? There's a history of this in the GOP. Stand Up Michigan sold the database of their contacts. I think it was Stand Up. It was associated with Stand Up Michigan. Sold all the contacts of all the idiots that jumped on their petitions and didn't research the fact that this was a communist organization that started in Texas, got moved up to Michigan. And it's too bad. It's like people are just believing the headlines. So now it's like, we got to get rid of property taxes. You know, it's like, oh yeah, let's see how that works for you, because you brought it up with Engler doing this. Guys, get smarter. Dig into these people. And I found a reference that I posted about Carla Wagner being Kelly's, it was posted in an article, being Ryan Kelly's campaign manager. You're not a casual person who does 3 pages of donations and is a campaign manager for one of the 5 leading freaking candidates in the state of Michigan. These people are all connected. I'll guarantee you that. And so look into the verbiage, and please pass this on to the village idiots that are following this thing. And I'm sorry if I offend you, but too bad, so sad. This is going to strip out local funds and centralize it to the state. There is no way that they're not going to make up for this loss in another way. There's no provision for this. And she never got, what I was shocked about, she never had the language approved when she started collecting signatures. I'm like, this woman is out there collecting signatures on something that was poorly filed with the state. The language was not approved, is still not approved. We don't even know if she's going to get this on the ballot or anything like that. And let me ask you a question. She's gathering signatures on something that has not passed the sniff test and was not filed correctly, and blah, blah, blah. Somebody in the chat throws out, is she getting paid per signature to gather signatures for, I don't know, personal information on people who are gullible, that didn't look into this to really know what's going on with this? But it's a headline. Let's get rid of property taxes. And it's like, I am totally against property taxes. It's unconstitutional. But we have to look into the way that it's done so that it's honest, it's constitutional, and it's not just a way to distract us so they can move funds in another direction. I have no faith that this is going to actually accomplish what is being sold, just like the last 3 unconstitutional amendments in Michigan that roped and gagged the village idiots to vote for this thing and stripped everyone of parental rights. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to softball this because we're losing our country to this lack of discernment crap that's going on.
That's right.
And there's the Donna rant.
What happened?
I'm like burned about this. And if anybody can find out if somebody's getting paid for signatures, because the Republican Party was behind that Good Neighbor program in the state of Michigan. And I'm going to say, screw you guys, because what they did was it was all about data collection, and they developed an interface for you to go to your neighbors and put personal information of your neighbors into this database, maybe their dog or anything else, what they're thinking. That is turning people into spying on their neighbors, just like they did in Nazi Germany. And the MIGOP should be all of them indicted for what they did over that stupid program, and they dragged the village idiots in it to go out there and collect information and help them build their database, because this was not about the Republican Party. This was about data collection. And I can guarantee you someone was planning to make big dollars off of this data collection, just like they did. It's the money is behind data collection on everyone in every level of this government. And if you don't like it, I can't help you any more than that. There you go.
The Fourth Amendment was brought on. The Fourth Amendment was brought on board in the Constitution to protect us from that exact nonsense.
Exactly.
We have the right to privacy, and we have given it up. We have given it up with the telephone. We have given it up with a lot of other stuff out there, and that privacy is what the government uses to go after us. Yeah, maybe they're not going to come after you today, but maybe somewhere along the line in the future, you may say something wrong, and they already have the data collected that they need to yes. adjust the court cases, or adjust the indictment on you to get you into a criminal situation. That's what this is all about.
Isn't this the same thing the Nazis did? The Nazis did the same thing. And there's something in the chat that says as well by love, is that people don't understand. They're failing to understand that we are fighting modern day Nazis. They're trying to turn neighbors into each other. And let's just go ahead and turn all our neighbors in, and then buy into being part of the police force of the weaponized agencies in this nation. If you are doing that, you are complicit in the tearing down of this nation and going after your neighbors. You should first of all be ashamed of yourself before anything. But second of all, realize if you are doing this, if you are ratting your neighbors out for just being people, oh yeah, they've got this and I suspect them of this, that, and the other thing, and call the city, call the state on them. I'm going to turn them into the state. I'm going to turn them into the city, like a bunch of little spoiled snowflakes. You know, they're part of the destruction of America by destroying other people's lives. It is, and you know what? I'm going to say it. God's not going to be mocked on this, because it's going to come back to that day that people are going to have to stand in front of God with the rumors, the gossip, and buying into the satanic system and destroying other people's lives just to fit in, to make sure their little control structure is there. But I'm glad you brought Engler in on that, because I think that we can look at the past and see what's been done, and realize they're going to repeat it again. They're going to do it again.
Every day they're doing it to us, every day, and we buy into it. That's the problem. We do not understand that this government was set up to protect us, not to be our enemy. But that is who our enemy is. It's not the whites and the blacks and the Chinese and all the other races and whatever, and the males and the females. It's the government. It's the people against the government. The government is the enemy. And as we know, President Biden calls us, and Hillary Clinton calls us deplorables, and Biden says he'll use them. What are you going to use, a rifle against us? We've got F-16s. You know, this is the kind of nonsense these guys are talking against us. They are the enemy. We are not the enemy. We, the people, are supposed to be working and learning and living and being our own government and not being relied upon by these police forces, the enforcement agencies of government. They generally don't really exist, but we have allowed it over time, and that's our problem.
Yeah, well, the MIGOP case is an open and closed violation of the Fourth Amendment. Game over right there with what they were doing. Now, I'm going to continue this little bit of an interrogation here because it's like with Axe My Tax. I'm not saying that somebody did that, but I'm saying there's a lot of clues out there and a lot of questions that need to be answered. And it's like, I want to know if somebody's getting paid for signatures. I want to know that. I want to know what the plan is and why we would be pushing a petition drive on something that didn't have any approved language. I want to know that. I want to know all the people that are connected with this, because there's a lot of them out there that are connected with this, that are pushing this issue. And I want to know if they're all working together on this. I don't know the answer to that, but I've got a lot of questions that are if the answers go in the direction I think they might go. I think we've got.
Sorry, I'm on the broadcast. I'll be talking to you in 5 minutes.
There's going to be a lot of people that have a lot of splaining to do.
You were talking, and we're running out of time, but you were talking about ordinances.
Yeah.
About
Zoning.
What specifically?
Well,
we probably don't have time to get deep into it, but I want to. That's another issue.
I've had like 3 different issues that I have been kind of behind the removal of these things when they try to rezone things. We had one that went to a vote, a referendum, and it was defeated by 75% of the vote in our area. Well, these idiots right now, they like to pull determine how long you can talk in meetings, which doesn't work well with me, and that sort of thing. They don't have the authority to do that. Not only that, when they cut your microphone in these meetings, guys, it's a violation of the Open Meetings Act right there. You've got to know the law. They can't do that. And so there's a piece of property around here that they were trying to rezone for it, instead of being rural. They tried to rezone it to something else. Well, developer after developer comes in. And the last developer, I went right up to him and I'm like, you people are parasites, because you're going to come in here and you're going to ruin the quality of life for the people in our community. You're not adding anything. If you tell me you're adding, and these people that are sitting in the seats go, well, they're going to add to our tax base, then our tax base is wrong, because they're not going to add to our tax base. They're going to require the citizens to pay for infrastructure upgrades. They will tax us more. We get taxed higher to build more schools to bring. Where is this the benefit to anybody that lives in the area? Where is the benefit? Well, the last one, I was like, I'm going to tell you what, this is associated with Samaritas or Samaritan's Purse or something like that. And all of these organizations, which have connections to Catholic services, Lutheran services, Bethany Christian services and such, they're human trafficking organizations. And I'm sorry if it pisses everybody off. They're getting paid big dollars to move people in. Bethany's, when I looked at their 990s when we were fighting a refugee resettlement center years ago, and Christy Hutcherson asked me to come in and speak and to do something, I went through their 990s. Half their freaking budget went to refugees and refugee resettlement of the money that they brought in. Half of their income, I'm sorry, not budget, went to refugee resettlement and refugee services and such. So it was. Let me say it again. Not only it wasn't the income and the expenses involved in this. Half of this is not an adoption services per se, though it goes along with that perhaps, but half of it. And I stood up in a meeting and I said to everybody, I said, what you're seeing here is human trafficking. This is human trafficking. And I found an article that said that they lost 80 kids on the border, and they found those 80 kids up here in Michigan. Somehow they got here with no documentation, no tracing, nothing, in the hands of Bethany. I'm like, somebody's got some explaining to do here. Where's the other ones that I'm sure if they did it once, I'd like to know if they did it again. There's the next question. And start doing some investigation on this. This is serious, people. And so anyhow, the property was attached to one of these organizations. And so I started looking into this and how they were laying this thing out. And I'm like, they're going to turn this into a refugee center right here. And because the big dollars are about $1,000 a day per illegal immigrant, illegal alien coming in here, where they're housing these people, and they're putting them up in areas to create distraction, to have people in the area which are not there to do good things for the community. Right. And I'm like, this ain't happening. So I went in there and I was like, people were like going, oh, this isn't true. I'm like going, have you done any research? Or are you just trying to sit there and say, we've got to welcome everybody in as a snake comes in, rapes your daughters, and does all sorts of other manner of bad things, and your tax dollars are paying this, people. And so anyhow, I went up to one of the gals there, as I was saying in a meeting, and I just flat out said, I said, you're a parasite. So that's all you are. The developers are parasites. They come into communities like that. They expect the citizenry to pay for all of their infrastructure, gas, water, electric, schools, all of this. And they walk out of here laughing their asses off at people being dumb enough to pay for them to walk away with big profits. And that's the people sitting in the seats of zoning and the city councils and stuff, see how many of them are realtors and or are developers. I'm going to tell you right now, a good majority of them are into development. And when you look at the people that make the big dollars in our nation, almost all of them are in real estate. Ding, 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 ding. Are you looking in Grand Rapids right now? Ding, 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 ding. Are you looking in Detroit? Ding, ding, ding. Are you looking at Ron Weiser, who made $150 million donation to the indoctrination camp of U of M, and it sits on the board of the Atlantic Council? Ding, 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 ding. Are we looking into any of this? Because if their character doesn't stand the sniff test, they're not going to do good things. They're going to continue to do bad things. They're not going to stop. They're going to find better ways to do it. When you look at the area I'm in, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of developers and realtors that are on all of these boards. Why? Because they can sell this nation off piece by piece, telling us it's going to increase the tax rolls for us. No, it's not. You're going to get higher taxes, guaranteed. And anybody believes that they're going to raise the tax base is part of the village idiots. They don't bring in more taxes. They're going to have to spend more taxes, and you're going to pay for it.
Right. That's right.
Now, because the next thing is increased police protection, increased oversight of, let's say, code enforcement or community enforcement and such. This is what comes down the pike when this stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So anyhow, they're trying to rezone something right now to get one of these developers, these parasitic developers in here to have a high density housing. And I'm going to guarantee you, it's like every one of these people in the zoning board, they're like, well, we're going to get sued. It's like, well, you know what? The whole citizenry of the area should sue their ever living asses off personally for sitting in their office. And lying to people, lying their ever living asses off on the benefits that they're selling us here. There's no benefit, people. And the village idiots need to get smarter on this. These people don't give a rat's rear end about you. They're getting paid on the backside, guaranteed, in some form or another, whether it's increased to their ability to develop themselves in other area because they set a precedent, or because they are realtors, or they sell services to these developers. What's the contracts? I'd want to see the contracts. Same thing when they did all the improvements to the schools. And I'm sorry to talk about this, but this is all connected. When they had all of this money, the COVID money going into the schools, look at the contracts to the contractors. Almost every school system had huge development going on. There was a look at your areas when COVID started. Almost all the schools built and built and built. They used the COVID money to build bigger schools, bigger palaces, add on to their township halls and such. All that COVID money went to building up for the crime syndicate. So they had more money, more influence, more palaces that they can build and such. They stripped it away from us and they put them into their pet projects. Look into the contracts to the contractors that got contracts for those schools and the development. Guaranteed, I will guarantee you there's connections to the people sitting in the places of power that gave those contracts out.
Of course.
That's how it works.
Of course. I agree with you 100%.
I need to have, because we've got a fight coming up here on that rezoning, and I'm pretty well loaded for bear on this because people have the right to do things with their properties that they want, but also to dig into how much foreign money is behind this. If you look into North Dakota, and I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to piss people off. I just don't care at this point in time. I met the governor of North Dakota. And when you start looking at his ties, he was right up there with Zuckerberg, and Trump has got him put in position because President Trump directs our attention. Pay attention to who he points to. He has never done one good endorsement. And I think it's because he's too smart. He's trying to teach us to look into this instead of telling us what to do. Look into the governor of North Dakota. He was sitting right there with Zuckerberg at the top and moved there. And he was behind, I believe, the app to trace the red flag violators for the red flag laws. And he was also behind pushing the sale of property up in Dakota by, let's see, what was pushed up there to China? Oh, yeah, the property around the military bases to China.
Yeah, not interesting, isn't that?
People get smarter. I'm sure everybody out there is like, go Donna, go, because everybody that's here already probably knows this stuff, because if they didn't, they wouldn't last, right?
True.
Yeah. So anyhow, I need some help here on fighting on really putting that out there that this is what they're doing. They are not serving we the people. Almost nobody in the positions of power right now are serving we the people. They're serving themselves and the organized crime syndicate that rules this world.
That's right. That's right.
So if you can put some time into that and have some, give me some wisdom, some Tater wisdom here, that'd be great.
Well, we'll look into ordinances. I do believe that 99% of that is illegal, but we can talk about that further. Government doesn't have the authority to own property at all, so that's part of the problem. And government can't own property. And government, if they take property from you, has to do it with the appropriate amount of money. They have to pay you. They can't just take property. They have to reimburse you for the property that they take. And we know how that game is played too. Coleman Young did it with Poletown in Michigan, in Detroit, where he reduced the taxes. And by reducing the taxes, obviously the state equalized value was going down, and then people got pennies for their property and were told to move. So, and they call that eminent domain. That's illegal also, the way they did it. But
yeah, there's and like you said, people have to learn to fight this stuff. Somebody said that the Rumble stream is down. I've got it up on both of my Rumble channels are up. So I don't know if it's your computer or what, but it is working for me. So I see it on both sides. It maybe I don't know, might be your connection, Rob, but I don't know. So but we are up, and I've got viewers all over the place right now. So I think we're out on like 7 I think we're out on 9 different venues besides BrandenburgNewsNetwork.com. We're on 9 different carriers because I'm trying to expand this. And yeah, I think you're going to see a change in Brandenburg News Network here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be expanding, and I think that some of the citizen journalists that were at Turning Point were talking about having them host some of their own shows and probably expand. Where we've got a really good connection right now. And I would love to have people's ideas on how they'd like to see us expand, who else they'd like to see us talk to, and who they'd like to have brought on. And I'll reach out to them. It's great because I've got the ability to sit here for about 2 to 4 hours max. But if I can get other people that want to host shows, we can go much. I can keep the connection. We can keep the connection up. We can keep Brandenburg News Network up, no problem. But more people want to do shows. Maybe your son wants to host a show on Space Force. That'd be really cool.
We'll talk to him about that.
How do I differentiate you? I've got John and John. Is it John Jr., John Sr.? I don't want to call him Little John. What?
He's a third. I'm a second.
Okay, we got John 2 and John 3.
Yeah.
That's cool. The micro Tater. John's mini me. So,
good way to start out.
Yeah, so I tell you what, I'm getting ready to bring Jonathan on. He's in the chair and all set here. So do you have any last words here?
Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Pacific states as we started talking about today. We're going to deep dive into it because it's full of our republic and who we are and what we are and why we are. And so we're going to hit that pretty hard. We still are going to go back to hit Norton again in the future, but we're going to do this one next.
Awesome.
And so we're going to start Wednesday. If you want to join us, if you want to do a deep dive with this and you send me an email saying, hey, send me Pacific states, I'll send it to you. And then you can join us on Wednesday nights and we'll go over it.
You know what I can do, John? I'll post on my Telegram channel at Brandenburg4MI, and I'll put that up there today. So if you want to go there and get that, it'll be there. So, all right, John, have a great day. Thanks, John 3, for coming on today. It was a real honor to have you both on. Proud military service. Thank you for everything you've given to this nation. I'm very grateful for your service and everything you two gentlemen have done. And have a great day. And you know what, guys? We'll be back in just a few minutes with Jonathan Cagle. He's one of my favorite interviews ever. So here he comes. We'll talk to you later. Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 25th day of June, 2024, and we're going to get right at it because I know everybody wants to see Jonathan Cagle and bring on. How you doing, Jonathan?
Good, Donna. Good morning.
Good morning. You were like one of my favorite interviews always. So
I always have to pay her, guys, just so you know. Like before the show starts, I pay her so that she'll say that every time.
Yeah, sure you do. That's how it works. Yeah. No, he does send me his beautiful music though that he plays. I love your music. I think that's great.
You are so kind. I appreciate it. It's my solace, and if I didn't have it, I'd probably lose my mind.
I think a lot of times I'll get to the end of the day and I'll be running like 900 miles an hour all day long, and I'll sit there trying to process everything from the day, and all of a sudden Jonathan will text will show up with his music, and all of a sudden I'll just listen to his music, and after about a couple minutes I'm like, Oh, life is good again.
Well, I sent you the last one at like I think I was about to go to bed. I had fallen asleep for like an hour, and then I woke up and I was like, oh shoot! I told Donna I would send it to you whenever I put something out. So I texted you at like 2 a.m. or whatever, and then like within minutes you're like texting me, thank you so much. I'm like, oh my god, I was expecting you to see it the next morning, but that's hilarious.
I don't sleep a lot typically. I'm a person who doesn't require a ton of sleep, or I can go forever without eating, and I can go for a very long time without sleeping. So I taught myself years ago how to take those 5-minute power naps. So in the middle of anything, I can just kind of check out for 5 minutes, and I'll wake up and it'll be like 14 hours of sleep.
Nice. I get 4.5 to 5 hours and I'm good. But once I'm up, I'm up.
So what are we talking about today, sir? I heard you had some potential big news, and I don't know if you can talk about it or not, but I don't care what you talk about because it's always good.
So the things that we had put out in the last couple of days are more data related. So I feel like this is going to be something that's exciting to you because I know you're a coder and
I'm a
computer
nerd.
bro. So
a total nerd. That's where you're going with this. I'm a nerd.
This will be right up your alley. And stop me if there's any like jargon, not that you won't understand, but that you think needs clarifying for your audience. And because we can get in the habit of using like acronyms and jargon that people are like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. So, but we're in a data war. So like I mentioned the first time that we were on the show together, we're in an informational and a psychological war. And one of the most prized commodities that we have today is our data, probably the most prized commodity.
This is so crazy because that's what I was just talking about. And I don't know if you were listening to it or not, was the fact that these people sell the data. They don't make money. They make so much money off of it. Stand Up Michigan did it. And now we've got another entity that somebody threw it out in a chat. And where there's smoke, there's usually fire, is ask them who's paying for signatures. Because I have a feeling that why would you push an effort and not have approved languages to even get it on the ballot? It doesn't make any sense because it may or may not. So what are they really trying to do? Who's paying for that data? I want to know, and I'm willing to listen to anybody out there that can prove what's going on there.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of those names, and I and a couple of other my close friends and colleagues unwound a lot of the data. So do you remember us talking about J. Alex Halderman and giving his testimony on behalf of Dominion back in 2016 and then again in 2020 when Trump was, had just gotten elected? He's testifying that voting machines are vulnerable and blah, blah, blah. And then later in 2020, when their selected candidate wins, all of a sudden voting machines and elections networks are secure once again. And it turns out that Alex Halderman is part of an organization that we found hacking into voting machines and networks and involved in a lot of corruption. That entity is called ISRG. That's the Internet Security Research Group. And on that board of directors, alongside Alex Halderman, is Jennifer Granick, an attorney for the ACLU, and Chal Gupta, who is the director of security at Facebook. And Facebook is very near and dear to us because we've talked about this many, many times. We found, our voter data, our ERIC voter registration data being sent to Beijing, China, to a domain that was owned personally by Peter Chu of Meta, one of Mark Zuckerberg's key executives.
What's it called? Internet what?
ISRG, all caps. Just try that. And if you can't find it on Google search, you can find it on my decent backup account, just with those letters.
It's bringing up a surgical thing for stocks.
Internet Security Research Group.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, you can keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm just searching. I'm just searching for stuff right now. So bringing up supporting documents.
no worries. So ISRG, its partner organizations are R3, which will be important, and Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is the one that's probably of most interest in the short immediate term. But when we run forensics on these platforms where we suspect malicious activity has either exploited a system or originated from. So let's say you work at company A and you want to exploit company B. We're going to look at end to end. So we're going to look at the exploits on company B's end, and we're going to look at who the actor was that we can identify from company A. So that we could possibly identify who you are or your associates and tie it back to you. That's how we kind of do this thing. So what we did is we ran forensics using Maltego and Spiderfoot and Alien Vault. And Alien Vault, I've mentioned, I think, on your show before, but it's a platform that absolutely needs to be familiar to your audience. So I would encourage all of your people who are watching and want to know about how we're unwinding the racket and how we can guess correctly when we anticipate that something is going to lead in this direction. Well, we support almost everything that we do with the digital forensics network side of things, because that's where so many of the crimes happen nowadays. That is the arena of the battlefield. And there's a company called Kleiner Perkins that is chaired by Ted Schlein. His last name is spelled Schlein. Ted Schlein, or Schlein, however he pronounces it. He is on the CISA advisory committee. He is a part of the NSA's advisory board, the DHS's advisory board, the National Security Council. He's on the board of trustees at InQTel, and he's on the board of trustees at Penn. And I think I mentioned last time I was on your show that Penn has been completely compromised by these Apollo Global Mossad operatives, like the chairman of the board, Mark Rowan, MarcRowan. And they are behind, I should say, so much of what's going on. Well,
InQTel and Mossad.
Yeah, InQTel, which is the CIA's venture capital arm. It's chaired by Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State. InQTel funds EcoHealth Alliance, where Peter Daszak comes from. They also fund Metabiota, where Nathan Wolf, Jeffrey Epstein, and Hunter Biden come from. It's a big mess. So it is basically, like I said, it is legitimately the CIA's investment arm. And this guy, Ted Schlein, he is the chairman of this firm, Kleiner Perkins, and they invested into a company, two companies I should talk about, but he is involved at Kleiner Perkins with the chief of staff of CISA, and her name is Kirsten Tott. So T-O-D-T. Kirsten, K-I-E-R-S-T-E-N, Tott, T-O-D-T. And she's also, in addition to being chief of staff at CISA, part of this global cyber alliance that I had talked about. Remember when I told you we found out who the people were that exploited Donald Trump's donations website and shut it down and took the money? Those people tied back to Global Cyber Alliance and this Kirsten Tott person and some people in Kelowna, British Columbia, that will be central to the plot.
This is interesting. So in Kelowna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is interesting to me. Okay.
Do you remember me telling you about an organization called BC Partners?
Yeah.
BC Partners, I have strong suspicion stands for British Columbia Partners, where Kelowna is. And I've never seen it written out, the BC, like in any of the financial filings with the SEC or on the website or anything. But for BC Partners, just to give you an idea, if you typed in David Giampolo, Giampolo, PAOLO into the search bar, you will see that that guy is on the board of directors of Smartmatic.
Birds of a feather, guys. GIAM.
PAOLO.
Okay, Pi Capital, PI Capital. Well, he's got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he's on the board of directors at Smartmatic. He calls Bill Clinton his biggest personal influence. And he is part of an organization called SGO Incorporated. And SGO is a joint venture that he entered into with Antonio Mugica of Smartmatic and Lord Mark Malloch Brown.
Oh, that guy comes up all over the place. Oh, now it's asking me to verify that I'm human by going to smartmatic.com. Oh, is that fun? We got to.
It's hilarious.
The connection here, guys. This is seriously. This is what I'm looking at right now.
Is that Cloudflare that's giving you that?
Yeah, it's Cloudflare. Look, Flare, it's right here. Right
yeah.
down,
How did I know that? Am I psychic? No, I know that.
Psychic. There's Cloudflare right there. Oh yes, now there it is. Cloudflare, Flare. Let's see. It's called. Oh, it actually did check the connection. Good. I hope that they can see that. You know that they saw the I don't give a shit button on there somewhere.
So yeah, SGO is a company that I don't think anybody has talked about. I found them about a week and a half ago. I wrote about it, but I just happened to see it was a screenshot that I had in my archives, and it wasn't even about SGO. This was like when you take a screenshot of a search result, and you'll have like 4 things on the screen, and then one of them will bleed over because you don't like take the time to crop everything out that you don't want. And I just happened to see the one thing that wasn't fully cropped out, but was kind of a little bit. I was like, wait. What is that? And that's what led me back to this, because I had known that David Giampaolo was on the board at Smartmatic. So I figured Mark Malloch Brown, who is the longtime chairman of Smartmatic and now is president of Open Society Foundations, had to have been involved with this guy in some other capacity.
Now you mentioned besides the ISRG and R3, you had another company that I've got about.
Let's Encrypt.
Let's Encrypt. Okay, I'm gonna want to make sure that I get all these up so I can put these out here. So you
should be able to enter Let's Encrypt's website from ISRG. So if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll list at the bottom where it gives its disclosures. It should list Let's Encrypt as one of their strategic partners.
Let'sEncrypt.org. Okay, so now we got them all up. We got all of the cast and crew of let's hurt America through all sorts of spy crap. The team has been assembled.
Okay, so that's funny. So Let's Encrypt, R3, and ISRG. Where do they come into play? Well, ISRG, where J.X. Alderman and Jennifer Granick and Anchal Gupta and a few others are on the board of directors, are funded by a lot of these organizations that are causing all the problems. And some of those organizations are Google and Akamai and Wix.com, which is literally IDF Unit 8200. Akamai is the CDN for the FBI, CIA, and the NSA. But you also have, and it's a whole sheet of them. So I don't want to name any that I'm not absolutely certain, but I know off the top of my head, you've got Wix, you've got Akamai, you've got Google, you've got, I think Meta is in there as well. But these entities are funding this organization that the guy who's giving testimony on behalf of the voting machines is on the board of directors. Meanwhile, we run forensics and we find in the Alien Vault pulse records, a pulse record is basically when you've identified like a MITRE CVE that has been exploited. So how does that tie into what I was saying about Kleiner Perkins or Ted Schlein? Well, when you want to kind of prevent, or I guess insulate yourself from being discredited by the people that they're going to hire to discredit you, the best thing that you can do is engage in guerrilla warfare. Use the very tools that they use and that they fund and that they support against them, and make them have to testify in court that their own work is bullshit, or they have to validate everything that you're saying. And so Alien Vault, Ted Schlein is also the chairman of a company called Ballistic Ventures. And don't Google it. Just look on my profile. I've got the personnel already outlined and who's involved and what they're invested in. Well, Ballistic Ventures is a company that was basically Alien Vault that was acquired by Ted Schlein. And so you're talking about the CEO, the CIO, the chief scientist, the CTO, and then I think there's even one other person involved that came over and now works under Ted Schlein at Ballistic Ventures. And this Ballistic Ventures entity is involved with funding companies that are acquired by Palo Alto Networks. For those who don't know, Palo Alto Networks is IDF Unit 8200. It was founded by a guy by the name of Nir Zuk, Nirzuk.
Say the name again, Palo Alto Ventures.
Palo Alto Networks. And when you look into this long enough, what you start to realize is that Silicon Valley has been completely captured by Israeli intelligence and British intelligence, and we just let it happen for whatever reason. But Palo Alto Networks, Nirzuk, that's his name. He is former IDF Unit 8200. They acquired a company that Ballistic Ventures and Ted Schlein originally invested in called Talon, just Talon. And it was founded by two IDF Unit 8200 investors. And why is that important? Well, they were funded originally by Sequoia. You remember us talking about FTX and Sequoia and Dominion and all that? Sequoia is also one of the co-founders is IDF Unit 8200. I think his name is, it's like Clannon or something. It's like two N's in the middle. I can't remember. I can see it's in the thread that I mentioned to you. But you've got IDF Unit 8200 funding IDF Unit 8200 that's then acquired by IDF Unit 8200. And what this guy Nirzuk at Palo Alto Networks said, and this is why your audience needs to pay attention to this part, is and I've thought this, seeing the transactions and the M&As that have happened over the years progressively. He said that outside of Microsoft, there's a massive consolidation of the tech and the cyber industry and the cybersecurity industry that's designed to leave centralized control in the hands of less than 10 companies. And those companies that he named, Palo Alto Networks, which is IDF Unit 8200, CrowdStrike, which is literally Tony Blinken and Warburg Pincus. You also have, which other ones did he say? It's one that starts with an F. Oh my gosh, my brain is failing me. How dare you?
That never happens to you. You're just like boom, boom, boom. Like you're like catching fireflies of thoughts all over the place.
I can see the words on the page. I'm like, give me a break.
You'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back to me. But the idea is to consolidate power into the hands of a few. And when the majority of those hands are not US based, that is very bad for United States network security and integrity and the will of the people, especially when our elections network infrastructure is built.
Is it Fortinet?
Fortinet, yes, Fortinet. Fortinet, Fortinet. Yes, that's one of them. And then there's one other one that I'll think of. But yes, absolutely. So the problem that we have is that our elections critical infrastructure is supposed to be upheld and protected by a sub-agency of the DHS called CISA. And unfortunately, CISA Advisory Committee and Chief of Staff are part of the entities that are not only not focusing on American companies, they're giving the keys to the kingdom to foreign intelligence agencies.
Because they're all working together.
Which is a huge problem. Correct. And so when Edward Snowden was a whistleblower in 2013 and he exposed that the IDF Unit 8200 had been receiving raw, unfettered metadata of millions of Americans from the NSA, that should have been a huge, like, red flag, like, holy crap moment for everybody that lives here in America. How did that ever become even a possibility? What happened in the past prior to that made that even a possibility? Well, there was this thing called the Patriot Act that brought down the Chinese walls between the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA. And they told us it was to reduce compartmentalization that could prevent us from successfully defending against a terrorist attack.
And just so everybody knows, the supposed head of the MIGOP, Pete Hoekstra, signed that thing not once but twice. So they have people that are complicit within the political parties. There's scope creep here. This is like a massive web of bad guys.
Correct. And the network that they're building right now is designed to not protect us. It's designed to pull the ladder up behind them. That's it. That's it. So as long as you understand, like, the people that, when your audience is like, how do you process all of this? I always tell people, think from a top-down 30,000-foot view and figure out what the overarching agenda is first, and then understand that all the, sub-agencies and personnel that are under that umbrella of the agenda are going to serve the agenda, moving that agenda forward. So the agenda is complete subjugation of the United States, turning it into a vassal state of London, once again, and Israel. And unfortunately, what's happening is you're seeing the people that did 9/11, the people that did COVID, the people that killed 2 Kennedys, the people that have our borders wide open, the people that did the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, the people that crashed the housing market in 2008, and the people that just crashed the crypto markets and the traditional markets back in 2021 and 2022, they're all the same people. And so when you think about the potential accountability that they stand to face if they ever see the inside of a courtroom, especially not a courtroom that's captured by them, then you're talking about consecutive life sentences or capital punishment. Because what's the appropriate punishment for genocide or crimes against humanity or, massive drug and child trafficking and sex trafficking and murder and organ harvesting? Like, what do you punish? And 9/11, like, if you found out that if you knew for the next 24 years that you had been involved in 9/11, wouldn't you spend the next 2.5 decades looking over your shoulder, waiting on the other shoe to drop at any moment, and doing everything in your power, resources wise and time and energy wise, to put things in place that insulate you from accountability?
I hope they're looking over their shoulder, because there's going to come a day of reckoning for what they've done for this nation, because there's too many of us that know what they did.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So like I forgot to mention the January 6th operation. The entrapment operation wasn't just an entrapment operation. It was use a false flag to get us past the giving them the ability to send the electors back to the states for 10 days like Ted Cruz had proposed and like there was already precedent for in 1884. So they wanted to send the electors back to the states for 10 days, let each of the states investigate their irregularities, abnormalities, and what appeared to be outright fraud, but they couldn't have that. They needed the election certified immediately. Without that, so the pretext under which they did that was January 6th. And then the entrapment operation was used on the back end to basically be a deterrent to anybody in the future that would ever get the idea to go against, big bad brother, So it was multi-layered. It had really three purposes, but that's serving those same people. When you look at the players, it's like the bigger it gets, paradoxically, the smaller it gets, because then once you've gotten to the point where they recycle bad guys, you've defined the borders of the entire racket itself. And so we're about at that place, I think. And Ted Schleen and CISA, they operate giving our data to Israel and to GCHQ and the Five Eyes and the G20. Why? Because they are part of the protection racket. And I made a post on Twitter the other day that said 3 things that you're going to learn today. And it might actually be beneficial for you to pull that tweet up. 3 things that you're going to learn today is that CISA was created to protect the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security was created to protect the people that knocked down the World Trade Center towers and stole $2.3 trillion and then set up the financial system that we know today with FinCEN and the Patriot Act and AML and Aladdin that we are subjected to now in the aftermath, and to protect the people that literally murdered the Kennedys, which we know now is Israeli Mossad assassins. So it's
I'm looking for
incredibly crazy.
I'm looking for your post.
So it's the number 3, and then just do 3 things, and it should come up.
Okay, keep talking, and I'm running like right now 5 screens. So just a minute.
I understand. So CISA exists to protect the Department of Homeland Security. Why? Well, the Patriot Act helped create the Department of Homeland Security. And Kirsten Tott, this person that I just mentioned, who's the chief of staff at CISA and who is on board with Ballistic Ventures with Ted Schleen, who is on the CISA Advisory Council, she actually helped draft the legislation that created the Department of Homeland Security. And what was that legislation? Who wrote the Patriot Act? Well, the principal co-author was Michael Chertoff, famously. And what happens when you dig into Michael Chertoff is that you find out his mother was already Mossad, and she was literally involved in Operation Magic Carpet. And you realize that his father was an Orthodox Talmudic rabbi from New York. He grew up in New York. He is literally 2nd generation Israeli intelligence. That's the guy that drafts the most intrusive, eroding civil liberties document that's ever been, brought to bear on the American people. And they used it with the pretext of, we want to break down the walls between each of our U.S. federal intelligence agencies, because we don't want compartmentalization between agencies to stand in the way of us preventing terrorism. But what they didn't tell us is that it also broke down the Chinese walls between us, all of our intelligence agencies, and the G20 and Israel. And yeah, they're our greatest ally, and London, they've always been good to us, haven't they? Like literally, it feels like every decision that them and the G7 and all of these countries have made has been to rob the American people, bring about this globalization of lost sovereignty of nation states and turn us into like a regional North American conglomerate of Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Why is that? Well, because the more that happens, the more that they dilute America's ethnic, cultural, and spiritual hegemony, the less likely they are to be sticking out like sore thumbs or ever get caught for any of these things, because once they can leverage the full scope and scale of the intelligence apparatuses in Canada and in South and Central America and Mexico, in addition to the United States, like, it's over. It becomes beyond the pale for us to do anything about it. Once we have no borders any longer, we have no country. Once we have no country, what do we fight for? Like, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to save America while it still has a reasonably defined border, even though our border is a sieve right now. So, unfortunately, they write this Patriot Act. Our intelligence is being shared back and forth. And now you've got the CISA key personnel today that are investing in companies that are started by IDF Unit 8200. So if we know that, and by the way, shout out to Julian Assange. I know you were excited about that, you know, him getting his freedom. And I also think Edward Snowden deserves his freedom just as much. I believe that the WikiLeaks stuff was integral to helping President Trump get elected the first time by exposing Hillary Clinton and what they had been up to.
John Podesta, the first class, you know, child trafficker. I mean, I liked Andrew Breitbart had it right. I loved Andrew Breitbart. I think he's a hero, and they killed him.
He was ahead of his time. He's a patriot.
And make no mistake, he was assassinated. It was not a heart attack per se, as we think of it classically, because they can induce a heart attack easily. They've had the technology since the 70s.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'll go into, if you want me to, I don't have to, but I'll go into the corporations and the entities behind helping them develop that technology you just mentioned. But so anyway,
I'd love to hear about that, but let's continue on where we're at. We can go there. I'm just going to keep the camera rolling today because you know, I think there's so many people that are under the threat of death for opening their mouths anymore. And the problem is that they probably have not run into this breed of patriot in a very long time, because we don't care. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain of us that we do not care. They can threaten, they can coerce us, they can kill us. It's still not going to change our path. And there's so many people out there like us now that they're going to be playing whack-a-mole to try to silence this. And every single person they go after, it just damns them further and assures their future destruction.
Absolutely. And so let's see. So you've got companies that are basically supposed to protect our network infrastructure and represent the United States that are operating on behalf of foreign intelligence apparatuses. And that's a problem. And you ask yourself, why are they doing that? And it's because these same people, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Epsteins, Mossad, CIA, they did 9/11. They killed, you know, John F. and Robert Kennedy. And they worked with other entities, especially the big pharmas and some hospitals and research labs in the Ukraine and in Israel and in the Beijing, Wuhan, China areas to create bioweapons that they released on the public just to remove President Trump from office. And Edward Snowden, one thing that he did, one of the reasons I feel so strongly about him getting a pardon or getting, you know, I still think Assange needs to look over his shoulder, by the way. I don't think he's going to be out of the woods like anytime soon. It's not like he's just going to show up and on their shores or our shores and everybody's going to be hunky-dory throwing him a welcome home party anytime soon.
Yeah, because he's messing up their power structure. And I mean, I think somebody asked me today, they said, do you think that the Assange drops had anything to do with Iraq? I said, I don't know. What I was focused in on was the amount of information that came out from Podesta and the satanic involvement from, Podesta and the child sacrifice and the walnut sauce and all that other nonsense that they do, because these people are straight up Satanists, and they butcher children.
Yeah, and we found some things in the last few days that ties back into these same network hacks that tie into the child trafficking apparatus directly, and demonstrate and indicate that these network hacks are designed to continue and protect that child trafficking and murder racket.
You bet it does, because you know what, I hate to say it, they're working, in my opinion, directly for Satan. There's some sort of payoff they think they're going to get, just like the gang or the cartel, Santa Muerte, the that sort of thing. They really believe they're going to get favor by butchering people. And you know what? This is going to come to a really bad end, no matter what they think. But that's their belief system. But I also think it has something to do. I just did put the tweet up. I couldn't get it to go through my normal channel, so I had to try a different couple of ways while I was online here. But these people make no bones about it. They're in the club. They get in the club by doing terrible things too, that they can hold over people's heads. So they, in a way, there's no way out once they sell their soul to them.
And that's what I don't understand is, like, how did that club, who established that club? And I haven't found the exact specific, like, these three co-founders established, what we know today as the deep state. But I'm going to find out eventually. Like, it's going to lead back to its point of origination. So
who do you think are the top 5 or 10 players in that realm?
Warburgs, the Rothschilds. I think
Rockefellers.
I think Rockefellers to a lesser extent. I think the Rothschilds are bigger players than the Rockefellers, but I do think John D was probably more of a patriot than his offspring. But like John D. the Fourth that starts the Population Council in 52, like, no, absolutely not. But I think that I can't remember his Orsini, the Grey Pope guy.
Orsini,
I think he's probably up there. I think there's a lot of Switzerland. There's a lot of Sweden, Investor AB, like telecoms, Serbia. Like, look at the people that own the telecoms for the global telecommunications industry. And those are the people that are going to be most likely part of the original founding of this global deep state.
How do you see Amway fitting into this? Because I'm going to bring it up and just piss everybody off here, because you know what? I hate to say it. Betsy DeVos stepped down on January 7th, and somehow Pence got $22 million, traitor that he is. And yes, I said it, because I have a feeling that there's a lot more to this than what people want to talk about. You've got the Van Andel Institute. You've got the global network, the connections with Amway with Communist China, the CCP. You've got some really questionable things. And not only that, what I do know is that they were funding and they're sneaky, because I want to look about the people that are underneath the radar that aren't right out there. They had 4 facilities in around Grand Rapids, Michigan, that were producing the jab here. And so Nature Boy and Girl DeVos, they're running around the globe, and I don't buy the story that they developed Amway in their garage, because from what I understand, they were down in the Caribbean with Epstein. And also they've got, I think it's Peters Island down there. So guys, if you guys are bought into Amway, once again, you might want to get off the stupid train, because I think you have some questions to have answered before you dive into this too deeply.
Well, let me ask you before I go any further. So I can unwind that for you as much as you want, because it's integral to the plot of what's happening now. But I don't like, if you want me to talk about that, I'm happy to tell you everything about Betsy DeVos and her brother and who they really are, because people, I don't think, grasp that she's not just somebody who turncoated against, Trump after J6 and was the first one to resign from the education department, but like, it's so much more sinister. It's up to you. I'll go there if you want me to. I think it's important to understand, but I also have my apprehensions because you mentioned turning point earlier, and I don't want to cause any like problems for you by saying things on your show, because Betsy DeVos helps fund Turning Point USA, as she does Blaze Media and everything. So I'll leave it up to you.
Hey, you know what? I'm here for the truth. I don't care who gets kicked in the teeth if we're bringing the truth out on every level. That's what we're here for. And so, I think the truth is the truth. The truth stands as what it is. And regardless if there's personal loss, we have to be committed to bringing the truth forward.
Okay.
And so it's like when I go into these organizations, I can tell you what, I never buy things hook, line, and sinker. There's always a mix of people. Now, with that said, when we're talking about Mossad and the Jews and that sort of thing, I have no issue with Jewish people, none. I have a big bitch with a global crime syndicate that has infiltrated every single organization on the planet. I know DeVos's are behind funding some of Hillsdale College, so they fund the things that we have been taught to trust without questioning. We have to question everything and not just say, oh, I like this, or I've got these connections here or these connections here. Damn the consequences. I mean, this is the way it is. I don't care. I want to know the truth.
My lab just walked up. She wants attention now. She wants me to let her in the house. Hang on one second.
Oh, I think she should just come on camera here, Jonathan. That would be great.
I was trying to get her to come. She was like, nope, I'm going inside. It's hot. So okay. We talked about like everything that's happening is to do what? To protect people from their implications in what things? Do you remember?
Their implications across the board into the criminality or the things they've been compromised by.
But what big events throughout history that I mentioned?
The wars, the Federal Reserve. It's always about the money. All of it. It's always about the money and the power.
Yeah, September 11th,
mm-hmm.
the assassination of the Kennedys, the creation, release, and cover-up of COVID, the 2008 housing crisis, the 2021 and 2022
Benghazi, the weapons of mass destruction. I mean, all of it, and all the child trafficking that nobody wants to talk about, and the butchering of human beings. I mean, I've seen people, of course not firsthand, but I've seen people where they have had their hearts ripped out beating. This is nothing new, guys. I mean, there's some really horrible things that these sick bastards are involved in.
Yeah, and you mentioned Benghazi and Iraq weapons of mass destruction. Why did George Bush and Rumsfeld and all those people feel like they had to make that shit up?
Because they were not falling in line with the global banking system. I mean, I don't really think that Libya was in a bad spot there. I think they had a pretty good organization, and it's a shame what they did.
It's the same way. It's the same reason that Gaddafi had to go. He wasn't on board with the global central banker cabal idea of things, and his country was closer to being the most closely represented mirror image of like what we've been taught America was growing up.
Right.
He had actually gotten his team and his country so close to that when he kicked out the central bankers, they obviously did what they did. And
they assassinated him.
The only reason they haven't done it with Putin is because Putin, like Russia, is the largest landmass nation in the world. They have arguably arguably the top scientists as far as engineering and network integrity. Russia can hold its own in defense with anybody and technology. I mean, we literally, I don't want to get into the moon conversation and the Cold War and Soviet Union, but like those people, like the building that is at NASA's Space Center in Huntsville, like right where I grew up and where my aunt worked and before going to Houston Johnson Space Flight. Like it's named after Werner von Braun. It's the von Braun Civic Center. Like who is he? He was a scientist from Nazi Germany, from Eastern Europe. Like these people are some of the brightest minds in technology in the world by far. And that's why Vladimir Putin is still alive, because he did exactly what Gaddafi did. He was just able to protect himself. I don't know if he'll be able to protect himself forever. I hope so, because spoiler alert, we need him and Donald Trump and President Xi and my guy in Hungary. Oh gosh, his name escapes me too. This is an off day for me, Donna. Oh man.
Okay, we're like all over the place.
Orban, I'm sorry, Victor. Like those guys are going to be the deep state's like
nemesis,
worst nightmare. And so how does that relate to Betsy DeVos and what's happening today? Well, Betsy DeVos's brother is Eric Prince, all right? And he started a company called Blackwater, which is a private security and intelligence firm, famously has done a number of jobs. His first job was actually defending a gentleman in Iraq when the war on terror, quote unquote, started. Who was that person that he worked for? That person was one of the two chieftains believed to be behind the planning and the execution of 9/11, the actual people behind it. The war on terror was because they needed oil and they needed a patsy to blame, to protect the people that were really behind it. And that guy's name is L. Paul Bremer. He and Brian Michael Jenkins, the former deputy chairman of Kroll, and the guy that worked with Rand Corporation and British intelligence and Israeli intelligence and U.S. naval intelligence in the 70s, developing the MK Ultra program, those two are the chieftains believed to be behind the actual planning and execution of 9/11. And then Philip Zelikow and Michael Chertoff were the dutiful operatives on the back end running the 9/11 Commission report, and the principal investigator that then became George Bush's second ever appointee of the Department of Homeland Security, that Michael Chertoff, that is second generation Mossad, that told the FBI to let 7 of the arrested Mossad-linked operatives go and just expatriate to Israel. And unfortunately, that's where our buddy Eric Prince comes into play. And that's where everything that ties into today and COVID and the bioweapons attack against the American people and the vaccine tyranny, the biomedical tyranny state that we're in. So Eric Prince, his first client was L. Paul Bremer. And L. Paul and Bremer, who is Kissinger McClarty, and Brian Michael Jenkins from Rand Corporation, MK Ultra, and Kroll were the two chieftains believed to be planning September 11th attacks. How did he meet L. Paul Bremer? He met him through a guy by the name of Alvin Krongard. Alvin Krongard is somebody that your audience needs to be extremely familiar with. He is one of the most overlooked players in everything that's happened, but from September 11th and before to today, to like right this second. He is still immediately relevant. And BC Partners that I just had you look at, where David Giampolo is on the board at Smartmatic, Alvin Krongard is in private equity deals with the people tied to the BC Partners racket. And those people are Apollo Global Management, like I've mentioned last time on your show, the people that are Mossad. It's literally a private equity Mossad firm. So the same way that InQTel is the CIA's private equity or CIA's venture capital arm. Apollo Global is that for Mossad, but it's here in the United States. It's not in Israel. That's the problem. And so Alvin Krongard is the vice chairman of Johns Hopkins University, where Event 201 took place in October of 2019, 1 month before the first person in America got sick with COVID, 29 days to be exact. Alvin Krongard's chairman at Johns Hopkins is David Rubenstein, the co-founder of Carlyle Group, the chairman of the board of Council on Foreign Relations, and the guy that owns Dominion Voting Systems.
Check this out. This first one that came out is 9/11 and Alvin Krongard.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about Alvin Krongard. So they did Event 201 with West Exec. Avril Haines was involved. Marriott Hotels was involved. Chris Elias, Mark Elias's brother, who's the director or president of global development for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, was involved. And they gamed out what would happen if there was a global coronavirus pandemic. And they did that 29 days before there was a global coronavirus pandemic. What are the chances? Why did they do that? And how did they get away with it?
They tell us what we're going to do. They're going to do.
How do they feel comfortable thinking that they can get away with it? Well, the chairman of Johns Hopkins at that time, David Rubenstein, also owns Dominion Voting because he's the largest shareholder of Staple Street Capital.
Who is that? Who is that?
David Rubenstein.
David Rubenstein, okay.
He's also the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also the co-founder and co-chairman of Carlyle Group. And BC Partners is basically a private equity consortium of Carlyle Group, Apollo, Goldman Sachs, KKR, like the usual, like 7 or 8 different private firms that all invest in the same modicums and locuses of control to prevent ever being held accountable for all the bad things that they've done. Well, Alvin Krongard, at the same time he was on, the vice chairman of Johns Hopkins University, he is also involved with the Central Intelligence Agency for many, many years. He's also on the board of trustees at InQTel. And he's also involved in 2 different Apollo Global Management firms. So he's literally the guy that acts as the conduit between each of these entities that we despise and know are implicated. Alvin Krongard is the guy that introduced Eric Prince to L. Paul Bremer to make his first client. He was Eric Prince's CIA connection for the longest time. Alvin Krongard is the guy who Scott Gottlieb, the FDA director under President Trump, that left in May of 2019, right before the pandemic got rolling. Alvin Krongard is the guy that Scott Gottlieb worked for. And where did he work for Alvin Krongard at? At a firm called Alex Brown. Alvin Krongard was the chairman of Alex Brown. What's the significance of Alex Brown? Alex Brown is the firm where Alvin Krongard traded or insider traded on his advanced knowledge of the September 11th attacks. He knew that they were going to happen. And on September 6th, he bought 95% of all the UAL puts that existed. And a put contract is, I believe the price is going to go down in the future, whether it's in the immediate future or the long-term future. So I'm going to buy the right to sell a stock in the future at a certain price. You can exercise an option directly and just sell the contract for the exercise price. Like if a stock is at $10, I think it's going to go down to $5, but I want the right to sell it at 10 within the next 90 days. I'll buy an options contract. Well, he bought 95% of all these put options on UAL, which is basically a consortium of oil and energy production in Saudi Arabia and Iran and in the UAE. That's who they are. And then on September 10th, he bought 125,000 shares of American Airlines. And you're like, holy shit. That's where that's
It pretty well says it.
and Scott Gottlieb. Remember, the FDA is the famously Twitter account, you are not a horse, you are not a cow, stop it, y'all. Like telling people from their official FDA account not to use ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. God knows how many countless lives were lost because of that fucking stupid shit. Sorry, not stupid, corrupt, genocidal,
Criminal.
Correct. And they're trying to play it off now in court like, oh, we weren't giving official. It was your official account. And not only were you telling people not to do it, you were contemptuously making fun of them, trying to treat people like they're retards and lying that ivermectin only exists as horse paste. You are out of your minds. How do you think that you can get away with that? Well, Alvin Krongard and his buddies over at Apollo Global Management made sure that the day before they enter into this private equity agreement that I had mentioned, that Krongard and the BC Partners and Apollo Global are all part of now. The day before that, they made sure to appoint their buddy Hamamuli Das from K2Integrity, who is the fucking sedition hunters from January 6th, pardon my French. K2Integrity, that's founded by Jules Kroll, who is married to the vice chairman of UJA Federation. So you're talking Larry Silverstein, Mark Rowan, like 9/11. Jules Kroll, who was on the campaign staff of Robert Kennedy in 1968. Do the math on that one. Robert Kennedy, what year did he die again? 1968. This guy started his private intelligence firm, Kroll, and then spun off K2Integrity. Him and his son co-founded it together with a guy by the name of Alan Birkenau and one other guy that I can't remember. I think it's Noah Goatdiner. Those two guys, Alan Birkenau and Noah Goatdiner, are on the board at UJA Federation that we talked about the last time I was on the show. Was not a lobby for Israel. It's literally Mossad. And the guy that chairs Apollo Global Management, Mark Rowan, is also the chairman of UJA Federation. The former chairman of Apollo, his co-founder, Leon Black, is not the chairman anymore because of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And what happened with Jeffrey Epstein? Well, Leon Black is one of Jeffrey Epstein's longest time associates and paid him $158 million over a 10-year period for tax advice. And when people found out about it, he lied about the nature of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And he said he marginalized it. And he said, no, we're not really that. I don't really even know him that well. And it just so happened people found out that Jeffrey Epstein was the trustee and the executor on his personal estate. And that's when they realized, okay, it's too close to home. We've got to get you out of the limelight. And that guy's name is Leon Black, okay? These are the founders. For those who don't know, anybody that might be listening, I don't know how they wouldn't know if they're watching you and your show. Jeffrey Epstein is arguably the Mossad's most famous spy of our lifetimes. But prior to that, Robert Maxwell was basically the godfather of spying for Israel and for London and for the Iranians. Like Ghislaine Maxwell, who got 20 years for child trafficking to no clients, apparently, is Robert Maxwell's daughter, Jeffrey Epstein's woman of the house, or whatever he called her. They were always together. All right. So
partners in crime. Let's just call them partners in crime.
She was the recruiter for the child trafficking operation that Epstein was using to compromise political leaders all over the world. At the same time, His close friend, Nathan Wolf of Metabiota, is doing bioweapons research funded by InQTel, or CIA, I should say, in Ukraine at Metabiota, working with Hunter Biden. So the president that is pretending to be president right now, his son is doing the bioweapons research that they overthrew Ukraine in 2014 to enable. Why did the CIA and John Bolton and Victoria Nuland and Nia Jankowicz all go over there and overthrow? It wasn't Poroshenko. I think Poroshenko's who they installed, but the democratically elected president of Ukraine at the time. Why did they do that? Because they needed the biolabs in Donbass region and in Kiev to do weapons research that they would not be caught dead doing in the United States. And the CIA and UK and Israel were all in on it together. And only a year and a half ago did Victoria Nuland finally admit that, yeah, we have biolabs in Ukraine. Do you remember Marco Rubio interviewing her in the Senate hearing? And she looks pale as a ghost, like she's scared shitless. But the thing that was captivating to me the most was how scared and nervous Marco Rubio looked. Because from what I gathered, it was almost as though with his expressions, Rubio was coaching Nuland on how to answer the questions that he was asking. He was asking them very carefully. And that always stuck out to me.
They always ask him in a very leading way. I mean, there's a lot of that happens.
It was very protective. And that was all. And sorry for the tractor in the background. I have a neighbor that just drives his tractor down the road. So
tractors are great. You know, you can't knock tractors. They're like the heartland of the United States. Go tractors.
I'm like on your show being the stereotypical what everybody thinks Alabama is, like got electricity and running water 5 years ago. Like, yeah, my neighbor just drives his tractor down the road, whatever. We don't even have vehicles. But
that's okay. Horses are better anyway. So tractors aren't bad either.
My grandfather raised horses on my dad's side. He actually is the one that taught me to ride. He's the one that they murdered during COVID. He was the epitome of like what you would expect a Louis L'Amour novel like cowboy to look like, 6'3", 220, handsome as hell, like could have been a movie star, wore a big ass belt buckle till the day that he died, like stirrups, boots, the whole thing. Like I miss him. He's the guy that taught me ping pong, baseball, and how to ride horses. So
we'll give people a little bit of a break here to try to process all this after the tractor discussion. This was yesterday. I had a horse that was very, very hot. And I'm like, remember, there's times when we go through all of this to some of the greatest moments in time is just playing in a sprinkler.
One hot horse in the nest. Was just loving it.
So he just like having a great time just getting sprayed off because
he is enjoying that so much.
Yeah, look at his face. His face is hilarious. So even though we go all through all this stuff, guys, remember, stop and smell the roses a little bit, but it's good to put things together. I mean, I'm totally obsessive on this kind of stuff like you are. It's like we're a bunch of nerds that like to dig down into information.
Oh, he's drinking it too. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, he was panting pretty good. I brought him in from outside and he was panting pretty good. And I'm like, he needs to cool off. He was having a few struggles. So he probably, I can't even tell you how much water he drank. I stuck the thing right in his mouth. And for a while there, he was just going at it.
He is loving that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's hilarious. So anyhow, sorry guys. I thought we'd take a little bit of a brain break here.
Yeah.
So, where are we going to go from that? So let's keep going on with that train of thought, because I think it's going to be one of the biggest shocks to most people is how, I realized that we were looking at controlled demolition immediately. When those towers aren't going to just fall right straight on its own imprint, or it's not going to just go boom, 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 boom straight down like that did. There's no way. That's not how a building would fall.
Have you seen the video where Silverstein says we made the decision to pull it?
Yeah.
Like what? Okay, so you preemptively rigged the building with explosives?
That was building 7.
Yeah,
and
Tower
then,
7.
Tower 7. And then when you saw Tower 7 fall with all the explosions all the way around it, and it just basically collapses like this. It's like, here, let's see if I can get my hand straight. Kind of goes, boom.
And so when you see that video of him saying we made the decision to pull it, you have to understand what he said in that moment of, I guess, overzealous candor rather. He says that they preemptively rigged the building with explosives to do
They're
that.
arrogant as hell. They're going to put it out there and take credit to their buddies, hoping that we're not going to ask the question of, well, what did he mean when he said that? It was like John Kasich when he was talking about people were getting on McCain, and he said it hasn't even been 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. And and Chris Cuomo is losing his mind listening to that quote. I think that's how he said it. It was basically, leave him alone. He was put to death. I think there's a whole bunch of people out there that have been given the Rommel's way out and said, at least for now, you can save your face a little bit for the crimes that you committed. And they've been taken out. I really do believe that. Choose your poison, but your time to exit this earth is now.
If you've got that clip, please send that to me.
Have you ever seen it?
I've never seen that.
Oh yeah, I posted that. I posted it years ago when it came out, and I'm like, McCain's a traitor. He's like Biden is traitor in chief. Well, he was like co-traitor right there. I can't stand McCain, and he set up that fund for human trafficking down at the Arizona University of Arizona, I think it was at. And like $10 million, only like 500,000 was ever paid out. Why? They had a freaking pipeline that he was funding down there. I hope that, I shouldn't say that I hope he burns in hell. I hope that the man repented at the last moment. That's what my brain is saying. My heart is not, however.
So yeah, that's funny that you mentioned the rerouting the money that, that was intended to go support the ending of child trafficking was rerouted to the Arizona State University Foundation, where Michael Crow, the chairman of InQTel, which we mentioned is the CIA's venture capital arm.
Oh, here it is. I'll even put it up here right now. This is great. Watch YouTube shut me down, or watch them mess with the stream, because people, they don't want to get this out here. I
love that Lynn Forrester de Rothschild is on the board of the McCain Institute. Let me add that in, by the way.
Yeah, just snakes of a feather. Watch them. I mean, I'm going to say snakes of a feather just because I'm sick of birds of a feather. It's so cliche. Here we go.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, I love this stuff. I've been
Congress, though, it's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. And look at this circus of a hearing. Congress, though, it's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death.
Right there. And then the longer clip of that.
What?
Yeah.
What's the date? What's the date on that?
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll find out for you, because I remember as soon as I saw it, I was like, he said it. He came right out and said it, that McCain was put to death and that he did not die from cancer. But the greatest thing was Chris Cuomo's reaction to it afterwards. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm going to throw this on my YouTube channel or my Telegram channel real quick so we don't lose it. And then Chris Cuomo's face was just like, he's like, where do I go with this one? And it's like, too bad, the cat's out of the bag, guys, and you're involved.
Who is that made that statement? Is he intelligence, I'm assuming?
John Kasich from Ohio. Governor
Gotcha.
John Kasich. Let's see if I can find a longer quote here, because Chris Cuomo after that was beautiful. He's just like, he's part of the cover up, and you can see it with his reaction. John McCain's legacy is child trafficking.
So I'm going to give you
What do you
another.
think he did over there when he was, daddy is an admiral? What do you think he was doing over there, giving him every kid that he ever wanted to look at over there?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
a lot of the people in our Navy and our Coast Guard are compromised and are actively working against us. And so going back to Smartmatic real quick, just for a sidebar, Peter Neffinger, the chairman of Smartmatic, is the former vice admiral of the U.S. Coast Guard. And then the company that I mentioned earlier, Talon, which is invested in by Ted Schleen and Ballistic Ventures. Talon, which is founded by two IDF Unit 8200 officers, the chairman of the board is the former Navy Admiral Mike Rogers. So you're talking about...
Say that again.
Admiral Rogers, Mike Rogers, retired U.S. Navy, the former NSA director and director of Cyber Command, is the chairman of Talon, which was founded by two IDF Unit 8200 officers that was invested in with startup capital from Ted Schleen at Ballistic Ventures, Ted Schleen from InQTel, Ted Schleen from Kleiner Perkins, which is Tony Blinken. And for those who don't know, I don't know why this doesn't get more attention than it does. Tony Blinken is more probably tied in with Mossad than even Jeffrey Epstein is. And he is our Secretary of State. Tony Blinken, is the son of Robert Maxwell's, or the stepson of Robert Maxwell's chief attorney. But his actual father is literally the line of Warburg Pincus. So we talked about what families are behind the deep state. Tony Blinken is arguably the top deep state asset that gets not nearly the attention that he deserves.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go with Admiral Rogers here in the fact that I believe I've familiar with some of his writings and things he's done. I'm going to give him a massive high five here, because if he is on the board of Talon, remember, we're in a takedown of the old guard. I have the belief that he is of unbelievably good character. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to make a statement here that I will say that I'm going to take a guess that it's infiltration of these organizations.
I hope that's the case.
I'm going to tell you right now, because if you read what Admiral Rogers has done, it's great, because these guys are head spooks. When you look at Admiral Rogers and you look at General Flynn and such, don't take things at face value. I listen to people bash them all the time, and it's like, this is where we have to get off stop being village idiots here and jump on people just because of their associations. If you know something about them, know who are the really good guys and who are really good spooks, head spooks, because they're going to infiltrate. I believe that Admiral Rogers is one of those guys that has an incredible character. Let's see if we can get Chris. I don't want to leave this, because I'm not going to cut you off or us off, but I want to show you. This is a 10-minute clip. Let's see if we can go back to Chris Cuomo.
It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since.
Get Chris Cuomo on here if it's just this. It's 10 minutes of him saying that to prove the point, I guess.
I was going to say, it's just going to be 10 minutes of that. That's hilarious.
That's kind of funny, though, isn't it? Let's see if I can grab another one, because what was more beautiful was Chris Cuomo's reaction. It was absolutely hilarious. Well, I'll have to see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it online. So anyhow, back to Admiral Rogers and such.
So do you remember me talking to you last time about a group called the International Crisis Group, tied to Mark Malloch Brown, George Soros, yes. Alex Soros? So General McRaven, William H. McRaven, is also part of International Crisis Group. And so that that one was my oh shit moment, because like this is somebody that I had held in high regard for a long time. I still remember his make your bed every morning first thing when you get up speech that he gave at a commencement.
It's a great speech. I love that speech.
It's fantastic, and it's burned into my brain forever.
Right.
But to know that he's on this board that includes the worst people in the world, like there's no way that, like, here's my contention is that, okay, could he be an infiltrator? Sure, he could be an infiltrator, but they're not just going to be blind to the fact of who he is. They have their own intelligence apparatuses that are going to like do their due diligence and find out and have access to all of his communications.
Maybe they've already taken these things and they put people in to, I don't know, you know, it's like, we'll know at the end of the story, because I still believe the plan is God's plan, but maybe they've already taken this. I heard one time that the war's already been won and that
I hope so.
Things out. I have great faith that things are going in a good direction. I really do. I know that they had infiltrated BLM and Antifa and all of these things. There were some really good guys in there, and that they know who all the bad guys are, and they're great at infiltrating. I've got a friend who used to infiltrate the drug gangs, and it's really funny. He got shot jumping out of a second-story window when they figured out who he was.
Oh my God.
And then ran for he's a Marine, ran for over, I don't know how long he ran. Well, he was shot in the shoulder. And shows up to the emergency room and has to explain his way out of having a bullet lodged in his body. The story is actually pretty funny, and if you knew him, it would be even funnier. You know, it's like, talk about a no back down, person. He's not going to back down over anybody that that's like that. Shout out to Chris. So
yeah, so. I hope that that's the case. And if it is, then thank God. But I'm operating with the assumption that there's no white knight coming to save us. And I think that allows me to prepare and allows us to prepare at the level that is necessary for the magnitude of the battle that we're fighting right now.
Well, I think that's true. We have to win this with every single person fighting for our lives. But I think there comes a point of demoralization of people too, where they feel like they're all alone and that they're not fighting. Who's out there that I can actually trust and go forward. I know with me running, and I go to all these groups. I'll talk to everybody. I don't care if they're an assassin. I'll go and talk to them because I want to know who the people are. And I'll put the truth out here because we have to be that unwavering and, put the truth out there, whatever the consequences, we still have to put the truth out there. And because I'm going to be standing before God someday, and I don't want to look back at this and say, well, all these people may not have died if I'd opened my mouth and said truth. There's consequences to inaction. You have to act no matter what you say. It doesn't get nobody gets a pass on this. But on the same token, when we realize that there's a lot of good guys out there fighting, we can come in and be part of that fight and know that this is going to be a fight of God's people that he calls into the fight and to play lots of different roles, and that it's not hopeless. And even if the odds feel hopeless, God is above all rules and all odds, and he likes odds that are set against us. So to have faith that it's going in a good direction and that he's also called a lot of good people to step up and do the right thing. You may feel like you're fighting alone, but you're not. And I think that that's an important thing for people to remember, because I hear it all the time from people. What good does it do? Because, if I'm the only one, it's like, well, you're not the only one. There's a lot of good people out there, but you are maybe the only one standing in this one area. And that one area props up all the other people that are out there fighting because we fight together. So you gotta vote. You gotta fight. You gotta vote. You can't stay out of it and wait for somebody to treat you like a baby bird and feeding you every answer, every step that you have to take. Sometimes you just jump into the water, and because that's where God wants you, and let him bring the answers to you. But you got to jump. You got to jump in faith, and you've got to do the right thing, regardless if anybody else does. You still are responsible for that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you just said. And my thought process for preparing the way that I do, I liken it to, how God says he'll never put something on you that you are not capable of handling. And so the reason I prepare the way that I do is because I liken it to Jocko Willenick's Extreme Accountability book, where he took the mindset of leaders should always take far more responsibility for mistakes and screw ups than they deserve to take. And they should always take much less of the credit for the successes and the wins than they deserve to take. That's how you build like rapport with people around you and take ownership of everything that goes wrong that's in your chain of command or your chain of custody. What could you have done in your own preparation, in your own training, to be able to have headed that mistake off at the pass? Because even if you delegate 7 other steps in the process, what could you have done before you delegated it to that first person, that first degree of separation? How could you have done better? And I think about it from a standpoint of, okay, if we assume nobody's coming to save us, we're going to have to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. Then I wrote on my Twitter profile some months ago, the one that was permanent account for, like, they're going to game out everything that they do, every operation that they run against, enemies, foreign and domestic. And right now we are the enemies domestic to them. They're already going to game everything out algorithmically, mathematically, and they're going to have in mind a reasonable amount of energy and effort and knowledge and due diligence that the average person or the average normie American is going to put into fighting back. And they're going to be able to calculate with an insane amount of certainty and accuracy how much better they need to be than the collective fight back of the American people. And so when I thought about it from that standpoint, my inclination was, what if somebody or somebodies, because you do what you do, you step out, from the crowd in the hopes that eventually you'll motivate others to join alongside you and fight. And thankfully that's happened in spades. But what if somebody said they were willing to sacrifice themselves and literally do it every day, every hour? It was all they cared about. And they studied and worked at a level that was so obsessive that it was an anomaly. It was anomalous to their algorithms, that they would be the outliers that they would, exclude from the, outlier on this end and the outlier on this end. They would work from the standard deviation bell curve. What if one person motivated 6 people to do that, and then they motivated thousands of other people? Because it grows rapidly once you think about it like that. Correct.
Yes.
And what if we were able to out-prepare them and
outshout them, outperform them, out on every single level? I'm sorry, go ahead.
We are winning the informational war, and we're fighting our own intelligence apparatuses and foreign intelligence apparatuses. And their only thing that they can do to stop us is to turn the game off on our end, which is why they want to control all the networks. And I don't know if you knew this, but my Sorry, there's a hornet over here that's trying to mess with me. I love Alabama.
I love it. Welcome to Real News for Real People by Real People as we kill wasps and all that sort of thing.
And then he literally flies over here right beside me.
It's hilarious.
But anyway,
I love doing this. I absolutely love doing this. It's so real. You know, somebody wanted to record something to go on BNN, and I said, well, we can do some of that. But I said, honestly, I like going on live because you can't get away from what you've said, and people can't say, oh, they did you know, something to manipulate this or they edited it out. It's like, no, pretty much it's all right there. And you know, there's no.
This is them. This is who they are.
This is as good as it gets, and you know, good, bad, or ugly. You know, we're here.
So like, I feel bad because like on one show you've already had Tractor driving down the road, and you've had me like pulling out the Raid to.
Hey,
this is not a product endorsement of Raid.
This is great. I don't
even know what disclaimers I'm supposed to get if I'm even allowed to show a Raid can. But anyway, or the Mountain Dews.
It's my network, and guess what? I'm the only one that can censor it, and screw that. I'm not going to censor it.
But yeah. So like that has been my focus. I'm thankful I've been surrounded by people that realize like, okay, here's a 39-year-old guy who doesn't want to be doing this. This isn't the life that he envisioned for himself, but he knows the magnitude of how serious it is, how little amount of time we have left to do something about it, and what's at stake. So he, expecting nobody else to come and save us, is willing to, if I think about it like if I had to fight it by myself, I would have a puncher's chance. I know that will never happen, and I won't have to, and I don't have to. But the responsibility is on me to prepare at such a level that in any situation, whether I'm engaged on social media or in real life or in a courtroom or what have you, I'm always the most prepared person in the room, and I have the huge advantage of having the truth on my side. As long as I have those odds, I'll take whatever outcomes come my way. Let the chips fall where they may, if you will. But again, I've been thankful to be supported by some people who I got connected in with very early, and more people who have like kind of seen what we're doing. Like, I don't have kids. I want kids. I don't have a family. I want that. But I have to fight for all the people that want to be fighting as much as I am and giving the time and energy and brain capacity to it that they literally can't because they have those obligations that other humans depend on them. And so I get that. And I can't tell you how many messages that I get where people say, I appreciate what you're doing, and I want so badly to be doing it every bit as much as you are, and I just can't. And I said, you don't know how much I appreciate that. That's why I'm doing it as much as I'm doing it, because I know that you exist. And so these are existential, like course altering times. And we have 4 months until the most consequential election of our lifetimes. And I got started in this whole thing because of COVID back in 2020, 2021. But then I realized that the same people behind COVID are also involved with the elections, which makes sense because if you can control who are wielding the levers of power in a country, including the levers of power of accountability, then as long as the criminals ensure that only a certain few people get elected that are going to cover for them, they don't ever have to worry about their just desserts or their due accountability on the back end. So it makes sense that it's the same bleed over.
I've got a question about your background and how did you get into this? What's your bio of how you got into this? Because all of us that are in this fight who are super obsessive about this, like every minute of our time is devoted to talking about this and or digging down or finding information or putting it out there or whatever. What's your bio? What was your background?
So educational background, undergrad biology, grad school pharmacy, went into finance 12 years ago. I've done traditional finance as wealth management, investments, insurance, and then been a partner at 2 privately held Fortune 100s, partner and senior partner. Most recently, senior partner in downtown Chicago at Mass Mutual. And then left there when I got doxxed by the COVID army, who contacted my literal employer on a Friday evening, Peter Hotez's people down at Texas Children's Hospital, who's the biggest vaccine shill on planet Earth, and a hugely corrupt, terrible human being. He sent his people after me, and we found out later it was tied back to the ACLU and my own company. I didn't know this at the time, but my own company happened to be in on it the whole time. And after I left that company, I became a cryptocurrency hedge fund portfolio manager. And this was just months before the planned and coordinated crash of the crypto markets with Sam Bankman-Fried and the NSA and Gary Gensler. And I was like, everything I step into is like a landmine seemingly for conservatives and for people who just want to be left alone and have like a normal life without being perceived as an enemy and not having to walk on eggshells with everything that I say. But everything felt like an erosion of liberties, a further and further erosion. And so that's when I started, like, March of 2020, April of 2020 is when I really started asking questions, because that was the month that my grandfather was murdered in a hospital and starved to death. It was a month after the 15 days to slow the spread and the shutdown. And then the following month, after all this time of telling us how we're going to kill people if we go outside or go to a college football game, they're allowing and making excuses for Black Lives Matter protests and for Summer of Love riots.
Right.
Because they align ideologically. And at that point, I knew it was an operation that we were under. Okay. And to see scientists being held in high regard and have huge hundreds of thousands, millions of followers on social media, excusing one ideological end of the spectrum, saying that these riots don't spread COVID because they are in favor of gun control and they're in favor of, Black Lives Matter. But you go to a football game or a church on Sunday, like, you are just killing grandma. That's when I knew you're all full of shit. And now my whole life is destroying you. All right. It's the most now we're here. All right. You made this happen. Okay. You wanted this. I didn't want this. I didn't fucking sequester all of your data, without a warrant for decades, just so that I could release a bioweapon that targets you and your family and people that just look like imagine that. Imagine the gall. And then to get on all of the media outlets and tell you that you're basically killing loved ones and you're a murderer. If you
lost Jonathan, he'll come back on.
Protests, as long as the people standing next to you have BLM shit on, then that is, not going to spread COVID. As long as you're sitting down in a restaurant, you don't spread COVID. But when you walk to a table, you better keep your mask. I had so many people.
Ridiculous.
Again, granted, I lived in Chicago. All right. And I've got a little redneck in me. And with my background, I have a affinity to never just play along with a charade. I'm not built that way. I can't just do something that I know is bullshit for money or to not make waves. Whatever gene that is that people have, I don't have it. And so I would get when I would leave a restaurant, and there's restaurants right in next door to the apartment where I lived in downtown Chicago, and these people knew me and I was friends with them. or I thought I was. And then all of a sudden I'm getting like, all right, here we go.
Destruction starts with wasps and ends with Apollo and K3 and all of these things out there.
I think this thing is actually one of their like cybernetically controlled drones, just
little
like
drone wasps.
he's like that big. So I'm like, all right, yeah.
Did he die yet? Did you spray him? Did he die?
No. So what Raid did in their infinite grace and wisdom, they made their wasp and hornet killer shoot in a very small stream. So you have to be like fucking sniper level, like military trained
wasp eradication unit.
Yeah, it's crazy. Whereas like the knockoff Dollar General version that I have, it sprays in a wire. It's like a shotgun blast. So I don't have to be deadly accurate. Like, it's crazy. There's not even, you can't even change the setting. It's nuts. But anyway, so I can't even remember what I was talking about now.
You're in Chicago and you had restaurants.
I was in Chicago and I would be getting up to go to the restroom or to leave. And we'd be the entire restaurant sitting down, like unmasked. The moment you stand up, you got to put on a mask. And I remember one time at this Irish pub that was like right 2 doors down from my front door. Guy calls me over as I'm on the way out. He's like at least 6 or 8 years younger than me. You can tell what side of the political aisle he's on. He's like, I'm not going to tell you again. Whenever you're walking, when you're not at the table, you need to have a mask on. And I said, I'm going to tell you one time. Shut the fuck up, or we can settle this in the back alley. You know where I live. I know where you work. This is bullshit. I'm not playing your charade. And I got so pissed. Pardon my French again. I'm sorry to your listeners. Please edit that
I
part
think
out.
they're okay with it. I'm pretty extra sure everybody here has heard all the words and knows how to use about 95% of them.
The reason I got so mad that day is because literally the day before is when the Summer of Love riots started. And I'm like, what are we even doing here? Like, these people are standing on top of each other on Wacker Drive here in downtown Chicago, and they're burning buildings down. It was like a week after that. It wasn't the day before. It was a week after that. And I'm watching all of this shit, and they're telling us that, you know, if you are worried about COVID being spread because of these protests, then you should be more worried about the reason the protests occur. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you are so freaking full of crap. I can't even.
You may say all the words. It's okay.
And they were so contemptuous and sanctimonious about it too. Imagine knowing that you're right for years while 100 IQ, like just pretentious and contemptuous assholes talk down to you like you were born yesterday. And I really want to fight this person like right now, but I know that I'll go to jail and they'll use me as like a marketing piece for white Christian nationalists or some bullshit like that. But sidebar, the thing I love now that they use, now that they were clearly wrong the whole time and we were right, now they use inflammatory rhetoric is dangerous. No, look, dipshit, you were an asshole. You called me a murderer. You wanted my ability to exist in public life taken away. My ability to access government services taken away because I wasn't a fucking retard like you are. And guess what? Now you want to criminalize me rubbing that shit in your face? You're lucky I don't fucking beat your ass. Like, do I want to, like, have I felt so terrible, like, because You have isolated and ruined businesses and lives with your tyranny and stolen so much from kids, even in their formative years in the education. Like, the gall of you to call out my rhetoric. Oh my God. When you're held accountable, I'm going to do everything I can to like find front row tickets to the sentencing being carried out so I can shout all of my rhetoric at you as it happens. I plan on doing it. And I'm like, these people are the worst people that have ever existed. I can't imagine. And maybe it's because we have these computers in our hands called phones at all times nowadays. But like, imagine living in times when they would do this shit and you just couldn't check them on their bullshit because the technology just didn't exist to like keep a record. So you just had to take them at their word. Like, imagine how bad it really is. But so speaking of phones, I don't know if I told you this. 2 days ago, they bricked my phone. They 100% like infiltrated it, made it to where none of the haptic feedback worked. I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't even do emergency SOS calls from my device.
They can do that, everybody. They can get into any device that you have. They're able to come in. You'll never be able to see how they got in or what they've done to it, but they can come in and leave any device you have.
And the reason that this has never happened to me before, but I actually went down, filed a police report. Not that I think my rural county has some kind of secret cyber division where they're going to be able to unscrew my phone.
You just don't know, though.
I wanted it on the record, and I wanted to make them cognizant of, no. I'm not going to be the guy you're going to disable my communications and then just roll up on me at my house. That's not how this is going to go. And I know the cops here. I'm friends with the cops here. I live in a neighborhood in an area where it's like that classic, the neighbors have each other's backs and keep an eye on any outside riffraff. And it's a one way in, one way out kind of thing for them. So if you guys want to, make our day, please. But like, we'll know you're coming 10 minutes before you get here, as will local law enforcement. And so that's what I wanted to get on the record. So, and the reason that they did that is the stuff that we had found that ties directly to what is going to be hugely like right up your alley, Donna. As a techie, like coder, like this is going to be your wheelhouse. And I'm going to give you the name of some entities that you guys have probably never heard of that are integral to the plot from here forward. The first one is Arena.
Okay.
Arena is a Mossad front. A woman by the name of Sydney Rachel Levin Epstein, that's her name. She is the director of business development for Arena. She is also on the National Leadership Council for Jewish Democratic Council of America, which we had talked about last time was a UJA Federation front. The chairman of JDCA is Susan Stern, who is literally the former chairman of UJA Federation. The person that was chairman before Mark Rowan of Apollo is literally Susan Stern, the chairman of UJ of JDCA. Well,
is there a website for Arena? Is there a website for them? What is it?
If you go on my profile, I've got the link to the website. I think it's
is it your X profile or True Social?
X. It's my decent backup profile, and I think
you guys should go follow Jonathan. His X channel is amazing. You're one of the first ones I always check.
So, Arena is a front for JDCA. JDCA, for those who don't know, is who worked with David Becker at Pew Charitable Trusts to develop the ERIC voting system and calibrate it to where it destroys our voter rolls. And what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes is exactly how they're destroying those voter rolls and our basically voter registration and our PII information. So Arena is a front for the JDCA. All right. They have 18 executive leadership members. Of those 18, one of them worked for the Israeli president, Shimon Peres, or Perez, however you say it. That's actually Sydney Rachel Levin Epstein. She's also on the leadership council of JDCA. They have, let's see.
This is fun. I can't get rid of this one.
Which one?
Oh, it's like it's got a pop-up on it, and it won't let me get rid of it.
Oh, so I did a screen recording of the website so you can see what it looks like on my thing because I was dealing with that. But
gotta have information, gotta collect your data, everybody. That's what they're doing.
And so the ERIC voter system was developed by David Becker at Pew Charitable Trusts, and he was working with Elise Schutzer, who was on the board of directors for JDCA, Jewish Democratic Council of America, which again is a front for Mossad through UJA Federation. All right. So Elise Schutzer works at Pew Charitable Trust from 2015 to 2022, helping David Becker build it out to be more favorable for Israel. And right after she leaves there, she goes to ExxonMobil to be their global issues manager. Why? Because ExxonMobil and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Atlantic Council that are trying to gain control of all of our scarce, finite natural resources and energy production are directly involved in everything that's happening. And so this Sydney Rachel Levin Epstein, who is the director of business development at Arena, is part of that JDCA apparatus. She worked for the president of Israel. She also, I don't have her bio in front of me, but she's the director of Arena. Arena has partners that are key to this plot. One of those partners is Blue Rose Strategies. Blue Rose Strategies is basically Columbia University's statistics department. What they did is they gamed out using Bayesian analytics and stats to determine outcomes and probabilities of outcomes if certain things, were done this way or done that way instead. And the name that you need to become familiar with is Shira Mitchell, Mitchell. All right. She got her PhD at Harvard. She did her postdoc work at Columbia University.
I'm not sure that's the right link there, guys. So
that is Blue
right
Rose.
link?
That's absolutely it. That's why it's sketchy.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. And so if you go on Arena's website, you can see their strategic partners and their sponsors and everything. Well, one of them is Blue Rose Strategies. All right. Another one is Snowflake. And who is Snowflake? And I wrote about them 3 days ago. Snowflake is chaired, I think he's the chairman of the board, by Mark McLaughlin. He is the vice chairman and former CEO of Palo Alto Networks.
Oh my
all right.
gosh.
He's the chairman of Qualcomm. What does that mean? All right. Mark McLaughlin hired Nir Zook, the 8200 guy that I mentioned an hour ago, at Palo Alto Networks back in 2011, 2012. He's like OG in bed with Palo Alto Networks. At the same time, he's the chairman of Qualcomm. He's also involved with Snowflake, which is working to corrupt our voter rolls in in collusion with another organization called Headcount. Those three organizations work together with the U.S. Census Bureau to corrupt our census for Israel. So the number of here's why that's important. There's a project called the U.S. Census 2020 project, all right, that people have probably maybe heard of. But in 2016, there were supposedly 157 million-ish eligible voters, and a little bit over that number, maybe in the 140s of eligible registered voters, right in the lead up to the Trump-Clinton presidential race. Well, from 2016 to 2018, they want us to believe that America has added 52 million eligible voters to its census. And I know there's a lot of illegals, but even if you just took every illegal and
is this right here?
Yeah, that's it.
Holy crap! It's got all the, Okay. Hey,
registered to vote.
Keep going. I'm gonna hang on a second. Keep talking.
So they wanted us to believe that the registered voters number from 2016 to 2020 increased by 50 plus million people. And obviously it didn't. That's complete bullshit. But how did they do that? Well, they got involved with changing the census and altering the census. And they did it for two reasons. Obviously, they did it to steal elections, but they also did it to misappropriate apportionment around the country. So give fraudulent overrepresentation to certain states and fraudulent underrepresentation to other states in the government, in Congress. So that's why you would do that. Well, you see on head count that they have a feature called Good to Vote that helps focus on voter registration. Who is Headcount founded by, or funded by, I should say? Well, one of their main partners is Levi Strauss. Levi Strauss is the Haas family. Dan Goldman, who was the lead prosecutor in Trump's first impeachment, senator from New York, is an heir to both the Goldman Sachs fortune and the Haas family fortune at Levi Strauss. The ERIC voter registration system has two paid full-time employees on staff. One of them is Shane Hamlin. The other one is Erica Haas, Haas, the voter registration apparatus where all of our voter data has been compromised. Well, we ran the forensics on Headcount. We ran the forensics on Arena. We ran the forensics on When We All Vote. And I'm here to tell you, so When We All Vote, what you'll see and there's another company. This is probably the most important of the four companies. Impactive. You need to pull this one up. Pull this one up before we go into that. So Impactive is basically where all of the it's like almost the epicenter, if you will. And I think the address is impactive.io.
Yep, that's what it is. It popped right up too.
So this is like the epicenter for fraudulent ballot harvesting, thanks to dirty voter rolls. But they have partnerships, obviously with Arena, obviously with Headcount. This is where they recruit these election denier opposition or debunker accounts on Twitter or social media to discredit people like us who claim the election was stolen. And you can see who all they're partners with.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
In Michigan, working with Michigan Liberation and When We All Vote, they generated in 3.5 hours over 400,000 registered voters.
Oh my God. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
Well, here's the problem. This is why they hacked my phone. You should look at the part talking about when we all vote. Because when we all vote, tied to Barack Obama, blah, 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 when we ran the forensics, the exploits that we found were Perkins Coie and Maui ransomware. We now know that when we all vote is tied to the Lahaina direct energy weapon attack that was equal parts a land grab and a cover for a child trafficking operation. Chemo Hodgins, Hodgins, is a name in Lahaina that you need your audience to get familiar with.
Spell it, please.
Kimo.
Okay.
Hodgins, Hodgins. And in Lahaina's government, like their local government, like you can't find too much too easily on Chemo Hodgins. I wrote about him on my old account, and I just brought.
Contractor. He says as a contractor.
Mm-hmm. I've recently rewritten about him on our new account, but in Lahaina's government, there's a woman by the name of Nohelani Hodgins, and she actually has a hyphenated name. It's like Nohelani Hodgins. But her name is spelled N-O, like no, not yes, but no, Helani. And then if you want the full hyphenated, it's the letter U, apostrophe, the letter U, hyphen, Hodgins. These people, so I don't know how many of your viewers know this. There are at least 4,000 unaccounted for children in the aftermath of the Hawaii fires.
And you don't hear about that because fake stream media is trying to cover it up.
Yep, there she is. These people are integral to the plot. And headcount and Impactive, like their partners and their people, like on the board of Headcount is, if you look at the board of directors, you have, I think her name is Emmanuel, gosh, I can't even remember. She's like Facebook legal for their music contracts. Like what you're seeing right here is the gatekeeping. If you want to be somebody in this country, a movie star, a successful musician or a band, or a successful anything, you have to play ball, because this is how they weaponize the apparatus against you to keep it so that you never get to be somebody famous unless, like you mentioned, you let them compromise you somehow. And that can even include shutting your mouth and looking the other way. But this ties in Facebook directly to the Maui fires, and Perkins Coie directly to the Maui fires, because the same exploits that like involve Let's Encrypt and our ISRG and R3 that we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Perkins Coie is business partners with those organizations and is general counsel for those organizations. At the same time, they're representing Maricopa County in an elections lawsuit against the duly elected governor who had her election stolen from her in 2022, Carrie Lake. Let's be clear. Nobody in Arizona voted for Katie Hobbs. Nobody. She's one of the most unlikable humans that's ever existed. And her husband, the reason that she was existed, or the reason that she was selected, I should say, probably has something to do with the fact that her husband, Patrick Goodman, gives them access to children through his counselor job at Phoenix Children's Hospital.
Yeah, you couldn't even make this up. It's unbelievable how intertwined this whole thing is. Unbelievable.
And Katie Hobbs was a Hillary Clinton delegate from back in 2008. So she is fully on board with the agenda. And McCain Institute and Michael Crow, the CIA asset running everything at Arizona State and the CIA, is helping run cover for it. So this is the apparatus that we have against us. And you've got Planned Parenthood, you've got League of Conservation Voters, you've got the DCCC, you've got Biden-Harris campaign, you've got Meta and Facebook, you've got the ACLU, certainly. These are the people that they're using to not only, infiltrate our networks and mess up our voter rolls, they're partnered with the U.S. Census Bureau. And there's Michael Crow right there on the board of trustees at McCain Institute. Imagine that.
I had some real big questions about Cindy McCain and what went over on in Syria.
Well, did you see where she famously said we all kind of knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to? It was a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation. There's David Petraeus from the Atlantic Council. Atlantic Council is Goldman Sachs, just so you guys are aware. There's Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, and let's see, who else is that?
There's Sloan Kettering.
Oh, Sloan Kettering. So that's David Rubenstein, Carlyle Group. Like, look at the board of directors for Sloan Kettering. See, the McCain Institute is a microcosm of basically all the bad guy pedophiles that are trying to take over the country, because they also happen to be involved with September 11th and all the treason that's happened ever in existence, I think. I don't think anybody ever committed treason before McCain Institute existed, but that's neither here nor there.
There's Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. That always floats to the top, Yeah.
And so what I would say to you, one of the things, like, this is where you might be able to help us out with something, is use whatever tools that you use to tinker around to check out domains and URLs and IPs and DNSs and see what comes back with you. And that's why I give such credence to Maltego and Alien Vault. We always use multiple levers to get to the same conclusion to verify. It's kind of like built-in redundancy to ensure that what we're seeing is what we're seeing. So Alien Vault, which Kleiner Perkins and Ballistic Ventures and these CISA, CIA, Israeli intelligence spooks all support, they support and fund the same tools that we are using. So in a courtroom, they would be forced to choose between, yes, we are fraudulent snake oil salesmen, or the information is what it is. And so you can only identify so many exploits in the elections networks from these same people over and over again, whether it's elections or the census or it's child trafficking or it's Maui or it always seems to come back to the same people. And to tie it all up, like we mentioned Kelowna and BC Partners at the beginning of the show. Kelowna is where a lot of this originates from, because the domain registration tied back to Kelowna mental health. And we see in the exploit, which Alien Vault is basically like a neighborhood watchdog of hundreds of thousands of cyber people that are watching exploits and determining the origination, all of the domains contacted, what they were up to, and JSON, and all of the technical shit that turns most people's eyes rolling in the back of their head immediately. But Kelowna is in that network, the same people that are stealing elections, the same people that are shutting down President Trump's, help support my anti-lawfare bullshit, from DonaldJTrump.com. Like, those same people are also showing up in the Lahaina shit. They're also showing up in our elections apparatus. They're also showing up in our voter rolls. And now we know that they're showing up in our U.S. Census data, and they're working directly with the U.S. Census Bureau. So now the U.S. Census Bureau is a person of interest, and it starts with Impactive and Arena.
I tell you, I had some friends that were telling me about their census that they just got in. They're asking questions on that census. There's no chance in hell I would answer those questions. When do you go to work? I mean, it's like complete and utter invasion of privacy. It has nothing to do with the census of what we should be collecting for. They're asking for personal information and behavior, lifestyle choices and behavior, so that they can create that and plug that into your profile of how you organize your life.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say about it is that to re-mention somebody that I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the ACLU, which the ACLU pretends to be like this, civil rights organization, nonprofit that does, fights back against the man. No, the ACLU is part of a consortium called American Iron Front. American Iron Front consists of the ACLU, the ADL, which we know as Mossad, Antifa, the SPLC, so the Southern Poverty Law Center, and something called Unicorn Riot. Unicorn Riot is Israeli intelligence's bot networks, like the Mirai botnets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You look on American Iron Front's webpage and you scroll down a little bit, and guess what you find? You find Rand Corporation documents talking about survivability. They even have the gall to say choke out the alt-right. And when I already know that an organization is literally Israeli intelligence, I'll be damned if you're going to tell me that you're going to choke out the alt-right or white Christian nationalists or what have you. Just say when, all right? Let me know. I'm ready whenever you are. Let's stop pussyfooting around the issue. But if you look at the documents, you can see at least two or three PDFs there from Rand Corporation, the same people that helped knock down the World Trade Center towers, are the same people that have the gall to say stamp out the alt-right. Guess what, folks? ACLU, SPLC, ADL, Antifa, the Summer Love Riots, Black Lives Matter, it's all Mossad. All right? It's not an organization, Move On and Amnesty International. Like, it's all Mossad. Click on Unicorn Riot just so everybody can see. Like, Unicorn Riot is literally Israeli intelligence. And so when you think about it from that standpoint, like, we had Israeli intelligence assets and operatives on our streets burning down our buildings and our small businesses and terrorizing our citizens. And thankfully, those of us who wanted to be left alone were still in the dark at that time. But we haven't had an uprising against them because we believe in some semblance of hope of law and order. But now things change when you realize what people and organizations, what they really are, not what they pervade themselves to be, but what they really are. And so I say all that to say people need to come to grips with the fact that we need to do everything in our power possible to come to a peaceful resolution and recourse for everything that's happening and hold the people responsible accountable. And that requires uncovering and informing people of what the truth really is. And that's why we do what we do. So that once we have all of the facts and we've exhausted every possible means of peaceful recourse, when we are forced into the decision between subjugation forever or doing what the founders not only said we should do, but said we were obligated to overthrow a tyrannical government taken by enemies, foreign or domestic, we know that our anger and our actions are righteous and that they're justified because we are literally not fighting our fellow American citizens. We're fighting foreign intelligence operatives who have already infiltrated our shores. And that's why it's imperative for people to know who these people really are. And it's cliched, but people say if you only knew how bad it really is. Like a year ago, Donna, I never would have imagined in a million years that this is where the rabbit hole leads. But I only got into this after I made like a personal agreement with myself that, okay, this could lead back to the people that you hold in highest regard right now. And you're going to have a spotlight on you for stepping out, and you're going to be labeled and put into a box by the enemy, by all the levers of power as being one of these people forever now. Are you prepared to carry that label? And are you prepared for it to lead back to the people that you think you trust implicitly right now, if that's where it leads? And as long as you're okay with that, and you're not going to protect anybody, you're only going to protect the truth, then okay, let's do this thing.
I agree with you 100% on that. The truth is the truth, and it stands. And people have made their choices to go on which side of the line they're willing to go to and stand, and they've done it knowingly. I mean, I think there are some people that have been coerced and threatened and such. I think that as we go through this process to unravel it, we're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way. But still, which side do you choose is the question that has to be asked of everyone. And honestly, how far are you willing to go to live out what you say you believe?
I think that the bipartisan kind of I got a signal call from one of the law firms that I'm fortunate to be working with to take down these child traffickers and these COVID murderers. But I can call them back. So one of the uniting things that I focus on, where I think this is not a partisan issue, this should be uniformly, and that's protecting children from harm. Yes. And the same people that are behind all of this are the people that are harming children. So I shouldn't have to worry when I walk. I should feel like I can walk into the RNC or the DNC and say, help me take down these pedophiles. And I should have, under normal circumstances, overwhelming support. If I can convince people and I can prove that these are those people, help me destroy them. That is going to be the overarching factor that unites, I believe, and makes it to where people are actually motivated to take action. Because if a society doesn't protect its most vulnerable, you don't have a society. That's my thinking. And I stand by that. I will jump in front of a bus to protect kids. And, Stu Peters has had me on a show a number of times. And one thing I've always been appreciative of is there's always a part in every time I'm on his show where it comes back to protecting kids from these monsters, and they're literal monsters. And if we're not willing to do that, shame on us. Mm-hmm. So that's I
agree with that. There's so much we could talk about. I could sit here for 6 hours and just keep the camera rolling, because honestly, I think that one of the most valuable things that we can do by recording this live is by creating a record of what's been done, what's being done, and what we're seeing and what we're working on. I think it's so valuable. I don't feel like we got into the DeVos stuff as much as we could have, because that's an area I really want to go down, because I think that, they're going to be where you don't expect them to be. That's where they go. They try to get you in areas of trust. And Grand Rapids has always been this very conservative type area and such. Where are they going to go? people that as soon as they say God bless, they jump right on the side and say, oh yeah, they're one of us. No, they're not. It's like, just because they say something like that, that's not a true test of who you're talking to. I'm sorry. We just need to get smarter about these things and dig into them. It doesn't mean that you go around and expect that there's a monster behind every single corner. There might be, but there might not be too. But you start questioning things a little bit and verifying who you're talking to, what they're saying, and whether they're really on the right side or not. And that needs to happen. We have to do our own research. When we talk to people, we have to do our own research and find out for ourselves and answer our own questions instead of expecting somebody else to do them. Because when you trust other people to give you endorsements, let's just say, I only accepted one endorsement really, and well, two of them actually. And that was because I actually knew the people. And I knew the people. Those are the only people that I would have accepted endorsements with. And I've told you that I wouldn't accept an endorsement from somebody I didn't go for endorsements because I would want to say that accept an endorsement from somebody that I would be comfortable enough to actually leave one of my children with, right? In their presence, not just to pick up random endorsements. And because they expect people to follow them just like they did in Hollywood. Well, now we've got a political class that's turned into quasi-celebrity status that we're supposed to follow, and we can't do that.
Dude literally flew into my face. I'm sorry. Like, he was like right here, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. We're gonna nip this in the bud right fast.
That is so funny. So
I apologize.
I would like to go down through that. I'd like you to come back on again because I really want to. I want to take time I've got about a bazillion links to post here, and I want to give people time to help compile some of this information. And if you know something, if you actually know something about what's going out there in the state of Michigan, everybody knows how to contact me. You can contact me on X at BrandenburgForGovernor. That's my way to get a hold of. There was something that somebody dropped that I wanted to ask you. Is this the Dungaree cartel? And what is the Dungaree cartel?
I would say, without even knowing much about the Dungaree cartel, I would say most likely yes, because of the last little nugget I'm going to leave you with, and I want to make sure I get this on the record before we wrap up.
I want to put this down here because I think this is interesting.
So we didn't get nearly into as much detail with DeVos and Eric Prince as we could have, but here's the last thing for you to chew on. In 2016, Eric Prince's company was acquired by Apollo Global Management, Mossad, even though he's worked for these people since at least 2002 from the beginning. But his company's name was changed from Blackwater after an acquisition to eventually becoming something called Constellis, Constellis, Constellis. And they, during COVID, were tasked with vaccine rollout and compliance. So they worked originally for the people that knocked down the towers. Now they're working for the bioterrorists who are forcing biotyranny on the world. And I've put that out on my profile. You can do the keyword searches and see all the documents, all their own documents talking about it. So obviously they did it in partnership with Apollo and Palantir. And Apollo is the company that controlled the environment, where they bought up the hospitals, the assisted living facilities to control the protocols being used. Ivermectin and HCQ were no good. Remdesivir, diazepam, or midazolam and intubation, they killed people, and they bought life insurance policies on strangers in advance of killing them, knowing that they were going to be sending them into hospitals to die. So that's where this whole thing kind of comes full circle. And Eric Prince, unfortunately, and Constellis have been in it since 9/11 and were definitely involved in COVID too.
Tell me about the Dungaree cartel just a bit before we go on.
The cartels are controlled by the central bank. unfortunately. And the reason that we know that, take back to Pinal County, Arizona. All right. A few days back, somebody came out on their Twitter account, a guy by the name of McMahon or something. He's supposedly the guy that fed Laura Loomer information.
And
about
he's the guy that taped me, came to me as somewhat of a friend, which I take back not one word that I said. And, you know, in this call that he taped me, and then it's like you look back to his past, and I'm going to tell you what, he signed up for a group that actually was dropping, I believe, bacteria into salad bars or something like that. And he says he signed up after the fact, but no matter, he looks like he bought into that. Am I correct?
Yeah, he's an operative, and so he's supposedly,
and not a very smart one either.
I'm giving Laura the benefit of the doubt, but I made it clear in no uncertain terms. She took the information without verifying it or vetting it and ran with it and made a huge post from her huge platform on social media to attack a close colleague and friend of mine, Shelby Bush, who is one of the most staunch and hardest fighters in Arizona for election integrity and one of Kari Lake's attorneys. And she took information that I knew to be false and smeared Shelby, trying to pass her off as like a subversion operative that's intentionally trying to sabotage Donald Trump. And as somebody who's worked with Shelby and been there 15-hour days where you're not getting paid anything and you're all like eating like 3 big Domino's pizzas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like, I know who these people are. They're not going to get the fanfare. They're not out for following. They're not out to grow their channel. They're there to save the country. And nobody that I know of, like, if I have to pick 10 people to be in a foxhole at the end of the world, fighting for my life, my spiritual life even, Shelby Bush is going to be one of those 10 people until proven otherwise. And my bullshit-o-meter is exceptional now. So I just made it clear to McMahon, I know about the central bankers that you're working for, because I know that the sheriff in Pinal County, unfortunately, is compromised by Sinaloa because they killed his kid and his grandkid. That's another rabbit hole for you to dig into. But that's Pinal County. We ran the forensics on Pinal County and found the Federal Reserve with Pinal County shit, AZ, all over its domain. The Federal Reserve itself in New York had 71 unique domains, and like 2 or 3 of them are Pinal County, Arizona. That's not by accident, folks. That's one of our assets for our cartels that we control, which is Sinaloa. We have to make sure we have a way to funnel cash to him and our operatives. And we found that 3 days before McMahon made his bullshit attack against Shelby, because we were expecting it any day. Because once they've fired all their bullets and they can't discredit you, or they can't prove anything that you're saying is incorrect, they will try to discredit you with character flaws and weaponize their activated assets to put you out on and I think about it from a standpoint of like, extreme accountability. Like Laura Loomer has hundreds of thousands of followers. My former account didn't even have nearly 100,000. I think I had like 65,000 followers at my peak following. My now account has like $3,000 or $4,000 tops. But Laura knows who I am. And she knows that I'm not going to say shit that I can't back up. And if you want to continue being a super platformed investigator on this side of the aisle now, here's how things are going to go. Like, it's not going to be where we just defame all of the true America First people and make your like controlled opposition, loudmouth platform people the words of reason. That's not how things are going to exist going forward. PSA to Con Inc. Media. And I was just like, look, if you ever come after one of my people again, I'll throw your entire account in the fucking trash can. Because we will come after you. We will know who is funding you, who's behind this, who you work for, and we'll make it so that nobody ever trusts your account again, and you can't even monetize it. We will use your tools against you. That's all. And that's the only language that these people respond to. So we have to be prepared enough, not only like mentally through study, but the courage of character to use their own weapons against them, because they know they work, because they use them on us.
This is wild. It's so connected. It's just amazing. Well, I really thank you for coming back on here, and I'd love to get you back on again next week. If you have, would you be able to come on Monday?
Yeah, you want to just do the same time?
Let's do Tuesday at 10 again. We'll do Tuesday at 10, and if you're okay with doing it every Tuesday at 10. I'm going to push it a little bit.
Let me talk to my agent who doesn't exist and make sure that that's okay. So,
well, we'll do next week, Tuesday at 10 at any rate. And then we can always go on from there, because I'm really committed to giving everyone who has been censored and silenced a voice. I really don't enjoy talking to these big media stars as much as I do the people behind the scenes. Like when I went to Mar-a-Lago, what I found was really interesting. It wasn't anybody that stood up and was a speaker. It was all the people outside of that who actually did something. They just didn't talk. They weren't a spokesperson. They actually were the ones that were doing the work and actually knew something. Like I met the guy that wrote the continuity of government plan. They worked for I don't know how many administrations in the White House. Real interesting guy. There's some really good people out there working, really good people.
One of the biggest compliments I ever got was when I got my first invite to Mar-a-Lago, and I've gotten 2 invites. One was most recently to support Kerry's Senate campaign, and that's all the flattering and like the thank you that I need, because I can't afford to go to Mar-a-Lago. The first time I got the invite, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to go meet DJT, and then I look and it's like a ticket's $1,000. I'm like, ooh, yeah, you guys take post-dated checks on that, or like no? Because I'll have to owe you on that. But yeah, what you said, the people that aren't getting the fanfare, yes, they're not getting the limelight. Many of them are the people that you don't know.
I think that's what you go to these events and you dig into it a little bit into who you're really talking to. So like I went to Turning Point. The only speaker I spoke to that was on stage for a period of time was Jack Posobiec. And the rest of the people that were there were people that are unsung heroes. They're not speakers. They're not part of the show. They're actually people who are doing the work. And I think that's really something to remember, is that if the spotlight necessarily is on someone, maybe they're not exactly who they say they are, because they're being allowed or set up to be in that position. Because if you're not playing ball for them, they're not going to even get you near it. That's just the way it is. But it doesn't matter, because we're still the island of misfit toys. We're still the ones that really can't be controlled, that are still fighting for this nation. And it's like I say all the unpopular things just like you do. Bring on the toxic masculinity, guys. Go, feel free to not hold in all of this raw disgust and emotion that you have at what's happened to our country, our families, our friends, and such. It's okay to be pissed. It's okay not to say all the right words and to say what you really think and feel, because it needs to be spoken. Don't let them take your free speech away. Say what you need to say, regardless of what people think, and be ready to fight for this nation, because it's going to be a fight. There's no 2 ways about it. We're in a fight. We're in a war, and war's not always pretty. War's not always all puppies and kitties. There's some times that you've got to step up and lay it out to the way it needs to be laid out. I'm really, really happy about what you said about Scotty, our boy Scotty there, because I've kind of come out against Scotty a little bit too, and who he stands with. because you know, I'm not real happy about what I'm hearing there, and what what he did. Poor little Scotty, who everybody wants to say boo hoo, and poor little Scotty that got on camera with Garrett Soldano. It was so funny. Poor little Scotty and Garrett, who were there, and they did a broadcast. I jumped on the chat and started typing. The moment that they realized I was on that chat, it was like, it was live, and then they had to decide how to handle it. Poor little Scotty and poor little Soldano, who decided to try to bait General Flynn into talking to him. I don't think he has the time to talk to people of their character caliber.
You keep saying Scotty. I keep thinking about the Matt Damon cameo in like Euro Trip, where he's singing the song "Scotty Doesn't Know," and I'm like, oh my god, it's hilarious. So that's something that when you have time away from like saving the world, you should look at. Just check out "Scotty Doesn't Know" on YouTube.
I'm doing it right now because this is just too damn. It's just too damn funny. you know I'm going to do it, don't you?
Of course.
Here you go, Scotty's theme song. We're gonna have this guy that like does bodybuilding stuff in it. All right. Yeah, and Soldano was in with Stand Up Michigan, who once again, let's go back to data collection, and they sold their data.
Everybody. Got a little special thing I'd like to do tonight.
Can you hear it, guys?
A little song for you about the nastiest, freakiest little sex puppet I know, Fiona. This one's for you, baby. Happy anniversary.
The funny thing about it is that's his girlfriend.
For real? I don't know if you guys can hear it because the sound is really low on that clip and I can't bring it up.
It's called Scotty Doesn't Know because Scotty doesn't know that they're a thing behind his back. And it's just hilarious. So,
okay.
Good times.
Good times. Well, people keep saying that they're messing with my feed. Maybe, but you can always go to BrandenburgNewsNetwork.com where we kept things up when all the other providers were down, even Rumble and such. You can go to BrandenburgNewsNetwork.com. So let's say prayers before we go, and we'll look forward to next week, Tuesday. And this is, I love talking to you. We've almost gone 3 hours here. This is amazing.
Thank you, Donna. I've enjoyed it as well.
Weaponized autism at its finest, right? I love this. It's like, are we autists? Oh yeah. Get us on a subject and hell will freeze over before we finish what we're on. Just like, there you go. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very, very much for John and for Jonathan and everything he brings forward and all the research he's done and all those wonderful unsung heroes that have been fighting alongside with all of these wonderful gentlemen and the women out there that are out there. It's just absolutely amazing. And the fact that we are so committed to fighting together this fight to restore this nation, the wonderful gift that you've given us. It's just amazing. Bless every single person out there and let them know that they're very loved today and that that you're walking with us out of this bondage that we've been in. This truly, it's like walking out of Israel when you brought the Israelites, the people, not the Zionists that are running this nation and then the rest of the world, but the people who have been taken captive, and that you're always there to free us from these horrible satanic intentions that are set against you in this war against you on this planet. You created a beautiful place for us here, and we're thankful for every single part of it. We're thankful for our animals. We're thankful for farms and tractors and people who are brave enough to be in the fight and stay in the fight from beginning to end without wavering, bringing the truth forward regardless of the consequences. We thank you so much. And you've been a great friend to us, and we want to be a wonderful friend to you. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So there we go. Well, I appreciate it. We'll see you next week, Tuesday. Let me see if I can bring your Twitter account up here, your X. I still call it Twitter. Sorry.
I do too. I think I always will.
It's Twitter. Come on. X. What is up with X? I don't know if I can bring it up right now. I had it up there, but I don't see it now. Well, I'll post it in my Telegram channel. It's the easiest way for me to do it is to post it in the Telegram channel, and then you can find Jonathan and some of the other wonderful people that we're online with through Telegram. And we have a new citizen journalist panel that's going to be emerging here with Brandenburg News Network, and I'm sure you're going to really love everyone there. They don't censor. I mean, you're going to hear every word, and they know how to use all the words because they're pissed off about what's happened to this nation, as we all should be, and they're not going to hold back on it. So I think this is a great time to be alive. I love watching every part of it. I love figuring things out, and I know you do too. We love watching the good guys infiltrate the bad guys, and I do believe that we can have hope that they're not good guys are not just sitting out there doing nothing. They're out there like Jonathan is, and they're fighting every day, no back down, mad as hell at what's happened here, and they're not going to give up. And there's a lot of good guys that are out there doing that. So don't lose heart on this, but fight where you are, because every single person counts in this fight. And that's important. So here we go. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the United States of America, maybe in history, because we're not going to give up on this. There's no backing down. There's no turning away. There's no end to this fight until the mission is complete. And that's just the way it is. So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love. And God bless America. Make it a great day. If you don't have any examples out there, and you see people out there that are just play all the time on frivolous, stupid activities instead of things that really matter, be that example. Go against the grain. Stand up and say the unpopular things. Have the guts to make a mistake once in a while. Anybody that's in the game is going to make a mistake. You're not going to be perfect. There's only one perfect. He's there, we're here. He's God, we're not. Okay. It's just the way it is. And realize that the people that you're walking with get to know who they are. Are they trying to be God? Are they trying to dethrone God? Are they part of the war against God and God's children, God's people? Or are they fighting with every breath they have, every heartbeat and every breath to restore God's righteousness here the way he really did intend it to be? And having the faith and the courage to stand. We don't stand in our own might and our strength. It's only because God gives us that strength to stand and have courage in the face of all things. Make no mistake. This isn't with our strength or our knowledge or anything like this. This only comes from God, because the battle is the Lord's. We just have to make that choice to stand and decide that we want to stand, and then ask God for the strength and the wisdom to stand, and he will give you what you need. He never calls you to do anything that he doesn't equip you for. So step out in courage and watch miracles flow. Thanks for being with us. Go ahead and stay on for a minute, Jonathan. Like I told everybody yesterday, you should see the conversations we have after we end the stream. It's really great. So,
oh my gosh,
it's really fun. So at any rate, have a great day today. Know that you're loved and important. I want to show this. I decided I'm going to show this thing all the time, because people don't understand how important it is. Now, let me see if I can find it now. Of course, I've got so many stinking tabs open. Let's see. Here it is. Remember how this is you. This is God creating you, that flash of light at conception, that you weren't random. And this is important to remember. This is the moment of conception and that flash of life when God breathes into us the very breath of God. Every single person started that way. This was you and I and Jonathan and everyone. At that moment we were created. You're important beyond all belief. God knew you before you were created. Walk forward today in faith in God. He will never leave or forsake you. Have a great day.